Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Planning Committee meeting. My name is Councillor David Connor, and I'm Chairman of the Planning Committee here at Fenland at present. Welcome to also the members of the press and the public who join us via the live stream. Before we begin, please can I take this opportunity to remind everyone to turn their mobiles and computers to silent and ensure when using the microphones the red light is on and turned off when you finish speaking. So now, without further ado, we'll go to agenda item number 1 and ask member services if there are any apologies for absence. And it's Joe in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies received today from Councillors Gershner and Councillor Senate-Clough. Councillor Purser is in attendance today, Chairman, as a substitute member for Councillor Senate-Clough. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 2 is to confirm and sign the minutes from the meeting of February the 5th, 2025. Do I have a proposer to approve the minutes? Councillor French. Councillor Miffiden's happy to second it. Can I have a show of hands in those agreements? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. 3 is, we can go, agenda item number 3 is urgent items. There was an urgent item that has been circulated, which was considered today, agenda item 13, but this has now been withdrawn and will not be a part of today's agenda items. Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is declarations of interest. Member service will now go to each councillor in turn, and can you please state if you have anything to declare in relation to any agenda item on here today. So over to you again, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Benny.
Thank you, Joe. I'm a member of Chatteris Town Council, and I always leave the room when any matters of planning come up, and I do not speak or vote on. Morton Hall have got an application in today, and as always, I declare that I know Matthew Hall. He's done work for me in the past. I've worked with him with Chatteris Town Council on some projects there. Also, item 10 is an FDC application which falls under my portfolio, so I will be stepping back from that one today. Thank you.
Councillor Benny, can I just obviously check, were you lobbied on the gas road item?
Not to my knowledge, no. I checked my emails this morning, there was nothing there on that one.
Okay, I did send an email out to all members.
If it went to all members, then yeah, I haven't seen it, so yeah. But I will approach, as always, with an open mind. If I haven't seen it, then I'm in lobbied properly.
Councillor Connor.
Yes, Joe, thank you. I've been lobbied by email on application agenda item number 11, but obviously always keep an open mind on this application. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs French.
Member of March Town Council, but don't take any part. With regard to the email, I haven't seen it. Can you tell me when it was sent?
Monday.
I haven't seen it. I was county council meetings, so I haven't seen it. I'll try and find it.
Councillor Mefferdon.
Thank you. I am a member of Wisbech Town Council, but I'm not on planning there. I'm also a member of 2 IDBs. I did receive the email about the gas plant. Yeah, I see the email, but I will, as usual, have an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Joe. I'm a member of Mainey Parish Council, take no part in planning on that, and I also attend Chatteris Town Council, although I'm a district councillor, not on the town council, and leave the room when planning is discussed. I know of Mr Stone, the applicant on item number 5, not personally, but just through business, but we'll keep an open mind on that. And on number 11, yes, I received the email, but again, remain open-minded.
Thank you. Councillor Purser.
Yes, I'm a member of March Town Council and March Town Council Planning Committee, but I have nothing to declare on the applications of today. I haven't seen the email at all on the gas road thing, so nothing to declare there. I'm totally open.
Thank you, Chairman.
Just before we do that, I think Councillor Miffiden, you declared that Councillor Mr Hall from Morton and Hall are in the process of doing work for you. So is that still the case?
Apologies, Chairman. Yes, that is the case. Yes, so, thank you.
With respect, can you add that to the list of declarations, please? Thank you. Right, so thank you everybody for that. Now we'll go to the main part of the meeting. Members should only make a proposal on a planning application when invited to do so. However, I should be initially asking if anyone is going to propose the officer's recommendation. Clearly, if no such proposal is forthcoming or that proposal fails, I'll be looking for an alternative proposal. Members are reminded that any such proposal should be accompanied by the planning reasons for doing so. So now, without further ado, I'll hand over to Danielle Brooke. She's the Senior Development Officer here at Fenland to present application.
Chairman.
Councillor Benny, sorry.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. I did mean to mention, I can't remember, it's the one in Westfield Road mainly. The applicant is Mark Stone, his partner is Gary Edgley. They run IFX Engineering. 25, 30 years ago, they did some work for me, and also Gary is 2 years older than me. I can remember it from school, and Mark was a year older, but just for clarity, so that I make everybody aware of this, but I don't socialise with them. I haven't seen them for a long time either, so but I just wanted to declare that in my declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Benny. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Danielle Brooke again. She's the Senior Development Officer to present application F/YR24/0635 M, agenda item number 5. So Danielle, when you're ready, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 5 is a reserve matters application for the erection of 24 two-storey dwellings at land north of 96 to 100 Westfield Road in Mainey. It's before members today owing to a parish council objection contrary to my recommendation. The application site is shown here in red within the boundary. The site is currently a 1.5 hectare area of open grassland and is accessed via Smart Close, which is off Westfield Road. The scheme is proposed to adjoin the newly built scheme that is along Smart Close that runs sort of in northerly direction to the right-hand side of the site boundary that you can see there. The existing frontage residential development projects sort of east and west along Westfield Road and can be seen to the bottom of the images. So as I said before, it's a reserve matters application for a total of 24 dwellings, further to an approved outline scheme for up to 26 dwellings that was approved by members in 2024. Matters of access were committed at outline stage as shown. The scheme includes 4 two-bed dwellings, 6 three-bed dwellings and 14 four-bed dwellings. Apologies, let me clarify that. 4 two-bed dwellings, 6 three-bed dwellings and 14 four-bed dwellings. The development will be accessed by both adoptable standard roads with footpaths and a short area of private roadway to the western side. Dwellings include appropriate off-street parking and garden spaces, as can be seen there. 7 of the units are secured as affordable housing, denoted by the red dots that hopefully you can make out on the plan. An area of public open space with an attenuation pond is sited to the western side of the scheme. And in addition to affordable housing and open space, the outline scheme secured a Section 106 contribution for education, libraries and the NHS at levels outlined within the officer report. Comments are noted relating to the differences between the approved outline scheme and the submitted reserve matters scheme. This slide shows a side-by-side. Okay, it doesn't show a side-by-side. Let me just see what's going on there. Apologies, there should be a side-by-side with the outline scheme to the left and the reserve matters to the right, but I'll just flick back so members can refresh their memory on the actual scheme that's proposed to be agreed today, hopefully. So this is the reserve matters site. This is the outline site. So the outline scheme did seek approval for up to 26 dwellings. The reserve matters now only secures 24. It should be noted that the current reserve matters submission is only here to detail the finalised matters of appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. Planning permission has already been approved. It's considered that the committed scheme offers a more acceptable relationship between existing and proposed dwellings and reflects the built form along Smart Close and allows more appropriate private amenity space than the previous scheme. Going on to site photos. Photo number 1 is the existing entrance into the site from Westfield Road, which is known now as Smart Close. Number 2 is looking south from Smart Close back towards Westfield Road. 3 is looking north up Smart Close with the adjacent development just at the bend. And then 4, 5 and 6 are looking west, north and east across the main development site accordingly. So the assessment within the officer report concludes that the application proposes a policy compliant scheme which raises no issues in terms of adverse impacts regarding visual or residential amenity. Sufficient technical details have been provided and the applicant has actively engaged with the relevant statutory agencies to respond to any issues resulting from drainage, landscaping, layout and highways, with additional information sought to be secured by condition. The Parish Council concerns relating to the amendments between the reserve matter scheme in comparison with the outline scheme we believe are unfounded. In addition, their concerns regarding drainage details, highways and access, as I said, are secured by condition, and therefore the recommendation is to approve the application.
Yes, thank you very much, Daniel. We have one written representation and one speaker on this application. Firstly, I'd like to ask Member Services, which of course again is Joe, to read out the written representations from Nick Usher, and he's an objector. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to pass on my thoughts and incredulity in the manner this application has been handled. Please see the timeline. 24th of January 2022, commencement of first outline application, which included Environment Agency objection. Planning suggested refusal. The Planning Committee voted 6-0 refusal. 11th of October 2022, exactly the same outline application was submitted, apart from the Environment Agency objection, which had been submitted, just not loaded onto the application. 23rd of February 2024, somehow this application got through by the same Planning Committee on a 4-3 acceptance. I also see on these and previous minutes there are no declarations of interest by any member. Reserve Matters application, 30th of July 2024. A completely new amount of much larger houses with 30% more bathrooms and toilets, even though the Environment Agency objected to all previous applications. Somehow 30% extra waste would be acceptable. 12th of February 2025. The Environment Agency now state that they have not had enough time to put together a clearly formulated case. They have had exactly case, so they must rescind their objection. Field Road to service these new homes. How will that affect future homeowners? There may well be a case here for a judicial review. This whole application and the manner in which it has been dealt with is a complete and utter farce. When this tragedy of an application is passed in March, the future will be full of flooding and foul waste problems. When these water problems do occur and it costs the entire community of Mainey when it is flooded with effluent and surface water, who do we come to with all our costs and bills? Will it be the Environment Agency for not formulating a plan in 3 years and not standing with their objections? Will it be the Planning Service for not withholding all the important information online? Will it be the Planning Committee for reversing a 6-0 decision for the same application? It is all very well people sitting in their ivory towers and passing decisions that are meaningless to themselves. When will it become clear that applications like this will affect citizens and voters' lives when most are struggling with just living their lives? Yours sincerely, Nick Usher. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Marks.
Chair, I think at this point, for transparency, it needs to be noted that that is actually a parish councillor who commented at the Mainey Parish Council meeting as well. Although he's given it as a resident now, he actually did speak on this at the Mainey Parish Council.
Okay, I think we can make a note of that. Thank you for the clarification on that, Councillor Marks. Did you want to come in there quickly, Councillor French?
Yes, please. I'm surprised the Environmental Agency, it's Anglia Water or the Internal Drainage Boards. So I'm a bit confused on that.
What we can ask officers when we get to that stage, can't we?
Because normally the Environmental Agency don't want to know anything about Fenland. because we have so many drainage boards.
But we can bring that, we can definitely bring that up for questions to officers, can't we? So thank you once again, Joe, for that. Now I'd like to invite Matthew Hall, of course he's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. Obviously, you know you've got 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. A lot of what I was going to say, Danielle has kindly summed up, really. Members will be aware that this site has already got outline approval for 26 dwellings. It was approved by the committee in 2024. This detailed proposal is a reduction to 24. And there's a mixture of properties here: 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom, semi-detached and detached properties. During the application, Danielle raised some queries on the initial proposal, and we attended a meeting at Fenland's offices, and the proposal was amended. Since that time, we put in a detailed landscaping scheme. The layout was revised. We've shown a substation, additional garages, and all the highways queries were addressed. And I think it's possible some of the concerns on the public access about overhead cables. Now, there's been a meeting on site with UK Power Networks. I've got a plan from UK Power Networks, and that cable will be set underground. There'll be an easement strip, a substation, and there'll also be a strip of land left to allow access to the substation and the poles on the adjacent sites. The archaeological dig at this site has already been carried out. There are no objections. The lead local flood authority, highways, environmental health, tree officer, and Fenland District Council's housing officer confirms that the affordable housing provision complies with the outline approval and the section 106 previously agreed. All of the development within this site is in flood zone 1. So a section 106 agreement has already been agreed at outline stage with Fenland District Council and Cambridgeshire County Council Legal Department for this site, with contributions to the NHS England, education infrastructure, libraries, £2,000 per house, public open space and on-site affordable housing provision, which Danielle showed. Just picking up on the written representation that Joe read out, I think I would quite agree. The first application for outline was refused, but the second one for outline was not exactly the same application. There were 3 reasons for refusal from my memory. One of those was ecology. That was withdrawn on the second resubmission. One of them, there was no section 10 contributions proposed on one of those applications. We didn't do it. We put a section 106 in at the time. That was agreed with Mr. Harding, head of planning, and that reason was also withdrawn. There was only one reason on that second application. It was principle of development, and members at that time approved it. Officer report sums it up well. Danielle's talked it through very well, and it's being recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Members, questions to Mr. Hall? Yeah, now I've got one. Okay, I don't see in the conditions any road sweeper, unless I've missed them. I may well have missed them. But we need some sweepers, and we need some sort of wheel wash facility. Mud on the road, it's reared its ugly head again this week. Councillor French is taking the lead of it, and obviously I'm copied into it, and we're going to go and have a look at it perhaps later on this week. So we cannot allow debris on the road. So have I got your cast iron guarantee there will be measures put in place to stop that happening?
Thank you. On the outline application, on the conditions, there may be a condition asking for a construction management plan. I don't know, I haven't got them with me. A condition can be put on here as well, or on the outline, that has conditions about wheel washing, sweeping the roads. Can I give you a cast iron guarantee that's going to happen? I mean, I'm not the builder. A condition can be put on there, though. Yes, we'd welcome that.
That's fine. No, thank you very much. So, members, questions to officers, if you've got any, and I think you have.
Have it time to read it? No, I'm happy with it.
You're happy with it? Anybody else got any more questions for officers at all? Yes, David.
If I may just, I suppose, answer the question that you just asked Mr Hall. So condition 4 of the outline permission does require measures to minimise mud from being taken onto the highway from the site to be submitted and agreed with us as part of a construction management plan. So that's already covered through the outline, Chairman.
So thank you. So does that categorically say a wheel washer? And can we just add a wheel washer in there then and a sweeper of some description?
Through you, Chairman. No, the wording is as I've indicated, which is it measures to minimise mud from being taken onto the highway from the site. In practice, that is likely to be a wheel wash or a sweeper or both. But I think the important thing is that there is a control in that condition that addresses that issue that you've raised.
Okay. I've just got one question on 5.4. On 5.4, just for the YouTube really. Wastewater disposal, of course, that have a knock-on effect on the two other proposals in Maney as well. It's been explained to me that there is going to be some improvements to the drainage system so the wastewater can get away and there won't, alleviate the problems there. And am I right in saying there'll be no spade in the ground until such times as a drainage strategy is in place? Thank you.
Yeah, I can answer that one. Yes, so within the outline scheme, obviously having that approval, Anglian Water have an obligation to take foul water flows from the site. Notwithstanding that, there is a condition on the outline application, a pre-commencement condition requiring a full foul service scheme to be secured prior to commencement of the application. So yes.
Oh, Councillor French.
Thank you. Having listened to what Daniel said, so I'm satisfied that Anglia Water do have the capacity for this development.
So I'll reiterate, they have an obligation. Whether they have the capacity at this point in time, that's not entirely clear. However, they are looking to improve mainly wastewater treatment works within their sort of wider business plan, and that's been secured.
Right, that's it then. So I'm looking for members to debate the application now. Councillor Marks first. Thank you.
Thank you. As you know, this is my ward. So a few things regarding the first buildings on the site itself. Historically, I get phone call after phone call regarding mud on the road from various sites in Maney. I have to say I have not had anything on this development or been asked to go and intervene. I have been asked regarding vehicles being parked on the road, but there is a building development across the road as well, and it turned out it was their vans, not the vans for this site. Regarding the waste or the foul water, I believe Anglian Water are beginning to do some work from what they're telling us at the sewage works. It's ongoing. They're trying to put a bigger scheme into place. They have at times been tankering water, but at the present time they're not actually tankering anything away. So I think at the moment we're on the bordering of have we got capacity or not, but there is just about enough capacity, depending on how many more houses come on stream and how quickly they come online.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that for us. Councillor French.
Thank you. Yeah, looking at the scheme, I think it's a much better scheme than the one before. It has a reduction, and I'm pleased to see it has significant amount of Section 106, so I will support this application.
Still in debate. Anybody else want to add to it? Councillor Miffordin, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if anyone has mentioned or thought about the adoption of the road once the site is completed.
Well, that's it. Councillor French.
I can come in there as a member of Highways and Transport at Cambridge County Council. I would assume that County Council would want it brought up to adoptable standards. Whether they adopt it is a different matter, and if they do adopt it, it will be an enforced 20-mile-an-hour zone.
Indeed it will, but obviously officers in their summing up, if that's something they probably answer. So good. So I don't think there's too much more to add to the debate. I think we've all had a good airing on that one. So thank you very much for that. So the debate is now closed. So do I have a proposal to go with officer recommendation and grant planning permission? Councillor French? Councillor Miffidan will second that. So I've got a proposal to go with officer recommendation to approve this application, proposed by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Miffidan. Can I have a show of hands?
It's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
So that application has been approved. Thank you. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Daniel again to present application FYR 24/0525/0, agenda item 6. So off you go, Daniel, when you like. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this application is an outline application for the erection of up to 7 dwellings. It's got matters committed with respect of access and involves the demolition of existing structures on the site, formation of a detention pond and drainage works. The site is at Mayflower, which is 12A Westfield Road, just up the road from where we were a moment ago. And it's before members today owing to a parish council objection. So the site is shown here edged in red. It's currently garden land attributed to the host dwelling number 12A. And this is a single-storey dwelling which is set back from Westfield Road. You can just make it out on the left-hand image, sort of to the centre of the site. As can be seen, the site is surrounded by existing residential development within Mainey. So an indicative site layout plan is shown. The scheme proposes detached properties with both attached and detached garages, although that is indicative at this time. The application commits matters of access and denotes that the development will be served by a central private roadway with turning head and improved access where it meets the highway at Westfield Road. The existing dwelling is meant to be incorporated within the development and will be accessed via the same roadway. And the existing pond to the site will be enlarged and utilised as a detention basin. So some site photos for you. Number 1 is the existing entrance into the site from Westfield Road. Number 2, looking northwest from the existing driveway across the site. Number 3 is looking north from the existing driveway with number 12A, the existing dwelling to the right of the image. Number 4 is the existing pond, which is due to be enlarged. Number 5 is looking west from near to the pond across the site to development to the western side. Eastern side. And number 6 is looking west from the dwelling across the other way. So, to conclude, an outline application for 7 dwellings. The assessment considers that matters relating to principle, character, amenity, access, flooding and drainage, etc. are acceptable and in accordance with the policy, subject to conditions. The parish council concerns over surface and foul water drainage can be mitigated through appropriate conditions in consultation with the relevant statutory agencies, as we discussed on the previous application. So accordingly, it is recommended that the application be granted.
Yeah, thank once again, Danielle. We have 1 speaker on this application, and now I'd like to invite Matthew Hall again to make his presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes again when you're ready to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Again, really, a lot of what I was going to say, Daniel said already. So, I think one key point with the application is it says in item 2.3 where it states the site is surrounded by residential development. This site is clearly within the built-up form of Mainey, on the side of Westfields Road that's received various planning approvals for residential developments extending back from the frontage of Westfields Road. The site is all in flood zone 1, as it states in the officer's report, and also, as it states in the officer's report, is at very low risk of surface water flooding. Concerns have been raised by the parish council and objectors regarding highway safety. So Cambridgeshire County Council don't object to this application. There is already an access onto Westfields Road, as Danielle showed, but this proposal is to set a new, wider access onto Westfields Road, set further south of the S-bend in Westfields Road. And the visibility displays, which have always been shown on our drawing in both directions of 2.4 metres by 43 metres, for a 30-mile-an-hour road can be achieved in both directions, and the existing footpath will also be extended about the new access, which has all been agreed with highways. The displays of 2.4 metres per 43 metres at the moment for the existing access, yes, could be achieved to the south. I don't think at the moment the existing access that could be achieved to the north. So this would be an improvement to what's there. Obviously, there's obviously going to be a great number of properties if approved. Looking at some of the objectors, as comments, as objectors have raised concerns with regards to possible overlooking. If members feel this is an issue and it's recommended for approval, a condition could be imposed stating the development could be restricted to single storey to try and address some of the objectors' concerns. All to the northeast, as Danielle showed on the maps, all those properties there are already 2-storey anyway. There are no objections to this application from highways, environmental health, ecology or archaeology. As the officer report says, there was a withdrawn application at this site, which Mainly Parish Council supported. That was with a different planning officer, and we have emails saying that was looking to be recommended for approval. The reason it was withdrawn is we had to have a great crested newt test on the existing pond, which came back negative, and then we've obviously resubmitted the application. The officer's report sums the application up well, and the officer recommendation is to approve. Thank you.
Yep, thank you once again, Mr Hall. Questions at all, members? Councillor Marks, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hall. I know the area, obviously. I hate to use it yet again, but my daughter had a horse in a field just sort of like across the lane there, and that was a very wet field. So I know that the add-on to that was that piece of land is very, very wet. What drainage have you got in for surface drainage going off there? Where will that be going to? Because going down to the Darcy Lode, there is a big pipe that's already been overloaded previously. Last year I had to get the drainage board to come out and empty or try and dredge the bottom so we could get some flow. My concern is, firstly, where's the water going to go?
Thank you. So on site at the moment, there's a pond, as Danielle said. So we're proposing to enlarge that pond that's there now, which isn't big enough for this development. That's why we're enlarging it, making a bit of a feature of it. Then we've shown the drainage consultant who submitted it a further pipe, if you like, from that pond that then goes northeast and connects onto the pipe you're on about now, which is also in flood zone 1. That pipe is in third-party land. Which you'll know, and I've got an email here that we've obtained from the owner of that land, which I can pass that around if that's required, which they wouldn't have an issue connecting onto that, obviously subject to Anglian Water approval. I believe in the officer's report, it does state that Anglian Water have been consulted on this application and they didn't raise a concern. I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. So that would be the proposal, to keep the water on site and slowly attenuate it to that Anglian Water pipe on third-party land. We've got an email from them, which was also submitted to the officer during the application, saying they wouldn't have an issue with us connecting onto that. I can circulate that if you want to have a look. I'm happy to share it.
Thank you.
Does anybody want, before we go any further, does anybody want to have a look at that? Just, if you do, just shout, and Mr Hall, or thank you. We'll send it round to everybody. It's not going to hurt. I'll take you in a moment.
Sorry, Councillor Friend.
A bit confused here. Section 2, wastewater treatment. The development is within the catchment of many town lots water recycling centre, which currently lacks the capacity to accommodate additional flows. So you're saying on one hand it's okay, and this report says it's not. So can you clarify, please?
Thank you. My understanding, and if I'm wrong, because I know Danielle has been speaking with Anglian Water, is the actual surface water flows that Councillor Marks is saying, from my point of view, or Danielle's, there isn't a concern with that, but the actual foul water ones that you're on about, what you're saying about there, that's where they've raised concern. I think that's, yeah, okay, it's fine, yes.
If I can add to that. So further to that, obviously, as Matthew said, I've had significant conversations with Anglian Water about this situation, and they are comfortable with, again, submitting and proposing a pre-commencement condition to ensure that foul water flows can be accommodated in respect of the timetable of their upgrades to main water lots going on.
Yeah, so it's basically exactly the same as the previous application. It's got to be upgraded before there's a spade in the ground, I think it's fair to say. Yeah. So, Councillor Marks.
Thank you. So moving on from that, which I've read, thank you. My next concern, and probably the biggest concern, I believe, of the village, is the access where it is. I am amazed that highways, we believe, and one of the questions I'll be asking officers, is it a desktop survey? Have they actually been out to take a look? Because I am absolutely amazed they are saying that is safe for seven dwellings, or even 2 or 3 dwellings, let alone 7. And looking at it, I have some severe concerns. We already have a childminder who I know walks along there. She has a double buggy side by side. She's actually had to change that to a single buggy because it's very, very tight as you go. And I think that is going to cause issues there. If you actually look just at the map in front of you as well, just beside where it says Westfield, where the W is, it actually narrows up. People park across the road from there, and so as you come around that corner, you have literally come to 3 cars. One is usually an Audi 4x4 that's parked on the left-hand side of the road there, and then it narrows up, and now we're going to be feeding more vehicles out into that roadway. I'm sorry, but I can't support the plan just on that alone. But what provision, if any, have you asked for WL lines or anything to be put in there?
Thank you. So the access that you see on the plan, as you said, that is what we submitted at the start. Highways didn't ask for any changes, didn't ask for a speed survey. I don't know if they've been out to site or not, maybe officers will know. With the existing access, which obviously you know, and I've been in and out there a few times, I haven't visited site, the existing access that's there now, it's very tight. It is tight as it is. In my opinion, yeah, it's going to be more cars because there's obviously more properties if approved. It's an improvement because you can get the visibility displays both directions. We've taken the footpath into the site and there'll be a bit of a pedestrian crossing. Highways didn't ask for any more information. So did we provide any more? No, we weren't asked for it. They found it acceptable. Yeah, I'm not sure that answers your question, sorry. Have we asked for any double yellow lines? Did they? No.
Again, because yet again, I believe it will be a desktop survey, and I think, you know, we as a committee need to be mindful of that, because we saw this with Wimbledon Road as well. We hear of desktop surveys. We actually need officers, highways officers, to go out and look at sites like this, because I actually think that is going to cause quite considerable problems, and especially feeding more vehicles out from that site.
A worry indeed. Any more questions before I come in there? Councillor French.
Yeah, I do have concerns with regard to the highway. Looks to me as if it's probably just a desktop study. And also you have a public right of way running through there. You've taken that into consideration. Public footpath number 2 runs along two sides of the boundaries. So obviously you can't close that. Yes. Still a bit concerned about highways.
Okay, so how is what is the road leading into the site? What's that going to be constructed of? Is it going to be? Are you looking to have that adopted with street lamps, or is it going to be a management company, or can you explain a little bit more to me how that's going to work?
Thank you. So it would be existing property and 7 properties, so it'd be a total of 8. It would be a private drive. It would have to be, as all other applications, of bare material, so either tarmac or block paving, probably permeable block paving or permeable tarmac, certainly not gravel. There would have to be a management company or residents would own it. Have we got that far because it's an outline application? No, we haven't. But it would have to be a bare material, 100% like other ones, yes. And I think we've shown it 6 metres wide, so easily. And we've shown a turning head to ensure the bin lorry can come down and everything, yes.
Not just to go on, to labour on to the point, I'm like Councillor Marks and Councillor French. I am just fearful that this application has not been looked at properly by the highways. I wouldn't want to bring them into disrepute at all, but it is, in my opinion, it is really close to those bends, to be honest. And I'd like to think they went there, had a look, but I'm not convinced they did. And a desktop study in these instances is just not acceptable to us, really. But that's the only of no proof either way. And just hope they have done due diligence, but I'm fearful that probably they haven't. Thank you. Anybody, any more questions to know? Thank you very much. So, members, questions, clarifications to officers, if you've got any. Councillor Marks, thank you.
Well, let's start with the big one. Could you tell us, do you believe it was a desktop survey, or did they actually go out to have a look?
From the comments received, it wasn't clear either way. However, they have suggested that the access and the visibility displays are of appropriate dimensions for the area. So presumably they have looked at the appropriate data to ensure that the access is acceptable, and they raise no objection.
You'd like to come back?
We heard much the same again about Wimbledon Road, where they'd looked at the relevant data but hadn't actually been to have a look at site. So, okay. Number two on that, regarding the drainage, again, there's an awful lot of what looks to be like tarmac, or which will stop the water on site. The water is very heavy on site. Have the IDBs been at all spoken to regarding this? Because you've also, I believe there was a dike or a ditch to the side which has now been filled in when the new development was put in, and a pipe put along there. So do we know if the IDBs have actually been spoken to regarding taking this extra water?
Yeah, Councillor, I'm just looking for my next question.
I think
Bring you in.
Councillor Marks actually knows the answer to this. The answer will be no, because they're not statutory consultees and they don't have to reply.
Thank you.
Can you, any more weight you can throw on
Through
this?
the Chairman, Councillor French is correct. Middle level worker consulted on the application. However, we haven't had any sort of feedback from them on the application. And in addition, as the application is not a major application, there won't be any comments either specifically from the lead local flood authority, because it doesn't fall within their remit. However, I think looking at the scheme that's on the screen, while it is an indicative layout, yes, there is quite a bit of surface in there. There's also quite a bit of greenery as well, quite a bit of landscaped area that's indicated. I would suggest it's perhaps not massively different to a number of the other schemes of this kind of scale, which the council grants on a fairly sort of regular basis.
Thank you. Can I come back to that, Chair?
You can.
I understand what you're saying, but having known how Maney does flood, and David, you've been out personally to see how Maney floods at times as well. My concern is we are just putting more on there. We don't seem to have even had the local IDB speak to us when the local IDB at the bottom with the river that, not with the river, but with the Darcy Lode that was flooded last year because it was taking more water from the development beside that, the new development. I have concerns regarding where all this water is going to go. And I don't want to be out at 10 o'clock at night like I've been previously with pumps trying to pump out somebody else's house because we've done that on there.
Okay, good points made. Yeah, just my question to officers. I see there's a management plan, construction management, environmental management plan on, this is number 6. So if indeed this is passed, I think still in the balance really whether it will or it won't, so near to those bends anyway, we can't afford to have any debris on the road at all. That would just add, that would be bumming awful really. So can we put in there, if it's indeed passed today, that we could put in again a strong condition that they either a sweeper in there or a wheel wash. It doesn't really matter which. I suppose in this development where there's not too many, it would be inappropriate to ask them to have one all the time, but certainly keep the roads clear. So could we send them a strong message in the conditions there?
Through you, Chairman, the wording of condition 6 requires the construction environmental management plan to be sort of created in accordance with a template available on the District Council website. That's a template which has been sort of put together between officers of the planning service and environmental health, and my recollection is that that does make reference within that template to matters such as sort of mud on the highway, measures to prevent that. So as far as I'm aware, that the condition as recommended would pick that matter up.
Okay, that gives me some sort of comfort, I suppose. Any more questions to officers at all before I close this? No? So we'll move into debate now. Anybody who wants to start the debate off? Councillor Purser, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, taking into consideration what Councillor Marks was saying earlier, and about the desktop survey and the likes, I know that we often say that we need more housing and the likes. I actually did a personal ride out there and had a look down there, and went down there, and the thing that really concerned me was, as it's already been brought up already, was I know that the vehicles, there's loads and loads of vehicles parked up and down that road, and they're perfectly entitled to be there, but it made the visibility around those, what is already dangerous bends, all the worse. And I basically fear that not only with prams going through there, but the vehicles going up and down that road were going at quite a rate at times. And I thought, this is almost like an accident waiting to happen. And I'm really quite concerned about that, really quite concerned. Thanks, Chairman.
Very relevant point, Councillor Purser. Councillor Marks, thank you.
Thank you. As Councillor Purser has said, yeah, I have some severe concerns. You come round that corner coming from High Street, and you literally come onto vehicles that are already parked there. The first thing you need to do is get on the other side of the road. You're either going to be meeting vehicles coming in or out of that development, even with that distance, that gateway. I am really concerned about that. As I say, I know a childminder. She walks her children down there, probably 5 or 6 together. That is my big concern on that whole S bend, to be fair. It's not just that site, it's the whole S bend that is a concern. My other concern is the water off that site. As I say, my daughter kept a horse in the field beside it. I know, I've seen the field, as you go behind this site, there's further fields that are just waterlogged most of the time. Knowing what has happened previously with the other site and the pipe that was overwhelmed already, and then down to the Darcy Lode, I just think this is just a bit too much at this point in time, and I'm sorry, I won't be supporting this application.
Okay, we're still in debate, and we'll take Councillor Benny first, and then Councillor French.
Thank you, Chairman. I was busy reading upon the applications over the weekend, and I looked to see in a 30-mile-an-hour area what the visibility displays need to be, and according to what I found on the internet, you go 2.4 metres back into the boundary, and you need 70 metres either way for a display in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. I'm very happy it could be achieved if you were turning right as you were coming out, but I don't think that's 70 metres. I went and visited the site in the week, and I have concerns like Councillor Marks about the if this is another desktop survey. You know, we are told all the time we've got to go with policy and we've got to adhere to the rules, and it seems to me like that display cannot be achieved that way, unless Highways could explain to me why they feel that it would be appropriate today, but it doesn't meet the criteria as laid down in terms of Highways displays and numbers.
Thank you.
So if I may, Chairman, I think just to come back on a point of Councillor Benny's before the debate goes sort of too much further, my understanding is that the recommended visibility displays for 30-mile-an-hour zone are 2.4 by 43.
And just while you got your thinking cap on, what is the display of that application?
It's 2.4 by 43. I think, I think to come back on Councillor Benny's point, I think historically it has been 2.4 by 70 odd, but then it's been kind of reduced down in sort of revised guidance.
So actually, it's the bare minimum then, really, isn't it? Absolutely, you know, the real bare minimum, really, isn't it? French, did you want to come back at all?
Well, yeah, just on highway safety, I don't think highways have looked at this properly. I'd be quite content to see this application deferred for highways to come up with further information, because it is on an as bend, and I think if this application does get approved, the applicant should be paying for double yellow lines as well.
A very good suggestion, and I've got it down here. Right, so we're in debate still. Anybody want to add to it? And if we're looking, I'll come in here then. So if we're looking to defer, which I think at the minute, I'm looking to support that. Councillor Marks, being the local member, he's looking at the flooding issue down what is it? The
Darcy Load.
Darcy Load, sorry, thank you. Maybe we should probably have a look at that as well. I haven't got any problem, you know, if everything goes fine, you know, I wouldn't have any problem supporting it, but I have got issues, to be fair, with the water, how we're going to get the water away, and also the highway splay. Councillor Marks?
Could we also ask, I think we do need the IDB's input on this. I think we need to ask. Whether we get it or not is a different matter, but I will actually ask the chair of the local IDB to make, the local board to make comment on it as well, because I know we've got other issues down there, and I think they should, I know it goes to the middle level, but it may not go to the local board.
Okay, Councillor French?
Can I just ask which drainage board it is?
From memory, it's the Doddington-Wimbledon board.
March 5th.
Oh, I can't remember. It's not Meany Welney. It's not the Meany Welney, because it's the Darcy Load, and the Darcy Load doesn't come under the Meany Welneys. So it's the Wimbledon Doddington board.
Yeah, it's either March 3rd or March 5th.
It's Mark Heading. Mark Heading's the chair of the board.
Okay, so
if it's deferred, I'll speak to Polly.
So, you know, so I'll come in here then. So if we're looking, and I think it's not going to be knocked back too much. If that happens, we can ask the IDB for some comments, some legitimate comments from someone there, and also ask Highways to come back or get an answer from Highways if indeed it is deferred. So I don't think there's any much more to say really. So I'm going to close the debate now. So officers, have you got anything else to come in?
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. Just in relation to the surface water, as David said, obviously you can see the site is relatively green, relatively low density. Obviously there is condition 5 suggested by officers, which relates to a scheme being submitted. It wouldn't normally be practice to require all the details needed as part of a full application, an outline application or reserved matters. It would normally be something you would look to definitively deal with through a subsequent scheme once it's taken into account the final materials that they're looking to put down for hard standing, etc. Because permeability, rain, runoff, etc. impacts. Because at the end of the day, legally, all it has to do is wash its own face and deal with the matters. I'm quite happy to go back and ask for the IDB to respond to the consultation, which is all we can do. But generally, I would just say that we'll still have an opportunity to double check and ensure that there won't be any additional harm just through the condition. But
I think you can.
That's absolutely great, and I understand what you're saying. You have the availability. However, we as a committee don't. We need to have peace of mind before we go to the next step, which is then you having that authority to do. So I feel, as the local councillor, and having seen the flooding issues that we've had, and we've had flooding meetings, Councillor French, Councillor Connor came to a flooding meeting in the village I would be wrong if I didn't, as the local councillor, stand up and say, we need to at least put that safeguard in for ourselves and have that input from the local drainage boards.
Okay. Any more comments, David?
Yeah, if I may please, Chairman. I think just to pick up the issue of the sort of further consultation with the IDB, obviously they have already been consulted on this application. However, I would just point out to members that at the moment the drainage sort of strategy proposed doesn't involve actually an IDB watercourse. So I'd be somewhat surprised if the IDB actually comment, because the proposal at the moment is that a sort of a new sort of water court or a new pipe is put across third-party land to connect to the Anglian Water surface, Anglian Water sort of combined sewer in Cox's Way. So, and I'm looking at Mr. Holter just nodding in agreement with that, so he's confirming that that is the proposal. So, as it stands at the minute, I can't see that the IDB would be particularly interested in commenting upon the application.
Okay. Some marks in.
Sorry, so just to clarify, we're saying that no surface water is going from this site into an IDB drain. It's all going into Anglian Water's own system, which is almost overloaded already. I would be even more hesitant to pass this application than, knowing that the surface water is going off via the IDB.
Yeah.
Through you, Chairman, I'd just draw members' attention to paragraph 10.15 of the report, which does indicate that sort of the outline of what the drainage strategy is proposed to be, and also outlines that Anglian Water, while they have noted that the proposal doesn't necessarily follow the SUDS hierarchy, they haven't actually objected to the proposal. So I don't think there's really a great deal more that we can comment upon around drainage at this point, given what's in the report.
Thank you. They might not be able to say a lot more, but as I would be wrong as the local councillor if I didn't say a lot more, which is we already know what we've had in the past, and by adding that into the system, I would be even more concerned now. So whether it goes into the IDB, whether it goes into Anglian Water, I'd like to hear what Anglian Water have got to say regarding accepting this, and have what they've looked into taking this water as well. I know they have to take it, but I would like to hear what they've got to say regarding that, as we've had in previous applications, the 400 in March, for instance.
Okay. Any more questions to officers? Oh, Councillor French?
Yeah, I'd like to pick up Councillor Marks. Yes, we certainly know Anglia Water in March, that's on the cusp, and they certainly don't want to take any more surface water from anywhere. We have monthly meetings with regard to the flow at Barker's Lane and Lamb's Drove, and certainly the issues, and especially going back to 2020, when I was out at Maney with Councillor Marks with regard to flooding. We can't ignore we have got a flooding issue, and we have got a major flooding issue. So, I mean, I went out and looked at this site at the weekend. The whole place is flooded. I would have thought, I did drive up, probably I shouldn't have drive up a side bit. I would have thought there should have been a drain there. If not, maybe there was one and somebody's filled it in. But, this surface water cannot be going into Anglia Water's pipes. I mean, that's just a big no-no. So I think we need more questions asked and more answers.
Don't disagree. Any more questions to officers? And I'm going to put a proposal forward. Do you want another question to officers? Yes. Yeah, okay.
Just wanted on, as we're looking probably now to defer this application, can we have a highways officer here when we're here? Sorry? I didn't get that.
No, they'll come for a major. They will come if requested for a major application, but I don't think that they would be open to coming just for 4. I really don't, or 7 or anything like that. I don't think. But at least we can get some more information. So I'm going to close this now. Any more questions to officers? No. Right. That's closed then. So we're going to say, so I'm going to go for do I have a proposal to go with officer recommendation to grant planning permission for this application? Anybody want to put their hands up? Can't see anybody. So that fails. So have I got another proposal? Councillor Marks?
I propose we go for a deferral. We request that we get further information from either Anglian Water or the IDB, depending on where this surface water is going, and also from highways as well. What I'd also ask is if we've got a larger proposal coming in the near future, if we could piggyback it on the side back of that. So we've actually got a highways officer here to explain. I'm sure we're going to have larger applications coming in, so maybe we could do that at the same time, make better use of the officer's time.
Okay, so I've got a proposal from Councillor Marks to defer this on highways and surface water issues. Secondly, by Councillor French. Can I have a show of hands on that proposal to defer?
Application has been deferred, Chairman.
Yep, thank you very much. Moving on, I'll now hand over to David Rowan, Development Manager here at Fenland, to present application FYR 23/081/11/F, agenda item number 7. So David, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a full planning application to erect 14 dwellings with various associated works at 47 Doddington Road, Wimbledon. Initially draw members' attention to the update report that's been circulated regarding this application. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. It sits between Doddington Road to the west and the A141 to the east. To the north is a fairly established pattern of in-depth residential development, and the site is in flood zone 1. So the application is in full, with the plans here showing an access road taken from Doddington Road, sort of in the grey, which serves the majority of the developments, with dwellings along the sort of southern extent of this road, and then 5 dwellings to the north-eastern sort of end of the road. The access road is shown as being a shared surface, which would not be adopted by the County Council. One of the units would be served by its own access in the southwestern corner of the site, which hopefully you can make out, and a footway link is proposed from the access road to the north of the site, running across the frontages of existing dwellings. Again, that, you can probably just make that out in the sort of the grey line running to the north. A group of existing trees to the northeast of the site is to be retained within an area of public open space within the sort of the green area. And the footpath which currently runs through this area is to be largely unaffected by the proposal. And again, you can probably just make out the lines denoting the alignment of that between Parkfield Lane and the Isle of Ely Way. So we've got street scene drawings are shown here. These reflect the mix of house types within the development, as well as showing the scale of building relative to neighbouring dwellings. And I think in particular you can sort of see that there's been a little bit of care taken to try and reflect the scale of the neighbouring dwellings, which are the ones shown in the white.
Just before you start, David, it's a bit off-putting. Who's got the telephone, the going ping like that, or is it my ears? Yeah, can we? It's a little bit off-putting, really, for me. Yeah, thank you for that. Sorry to interrupt, David. Would you please continue? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Moving on to photos of the site. So the upper left shows the current footpath link through to the A141. Photograph 2 is a view looking down Parkfield Lane towards the site from the north. Photograph 3 is the site frontage, sort of looking north. And then the bottom right-hand image is a view sort of across the site looking west towards Doddington Road. Again, upper left image here is the site frontage looking south. Upper right and bottom left are both internal views of the site showing its somewhat overgrown nature, and then the photograph in the bottom right hand corner, again just another view sort of the boundary of the site. So to summarise, the development is considered to be a small village extension with no adverse impacts on the character of the area or neighbouring amenity, and as such is considered to be policy compliant. Biodiversity impacts are considered acceptable, and the application comes forward as 100% affordable housing. As such, the recommendation is to grant permission as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, David. We have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Stephen Flowers. He's the agent to make his presentation. Committee, you've got 5 minutes when you're ready. Thank you.
So yeah, not an awful lot to add to that really, other than the fact that we've been working with the parish council for a number of years now on this application. It is 100% affordable housing, and I think the other thing we've been working towards is the fact that it is going to have a local connection criteria in place, so it will be 100% for local people within the parish. We've responded to various concerns over the lifetime of the application in terms of redesigns and, for example, moving the bungalows to the front of the site, just to help with the street scene and overlooking. We've had some recent data from Fenland District Council Housing Enabling Team in terms of housing need. That shows that there are 64 households in housing need within Wimbledon itself, with 491 showing Wimbledon as a preference, and within the wider district there's almost 1,800 households in a housing need. So yeah, opportunities for 100% affordable housing scheme with the local connection in place don't come along particularly often in this area, and I think we'll be looking for a Section 106 to be in place around securing the local connection and the affordable housing supply on the site.
Thank you. Councillor French, and then I'll come in next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Flowers. Yeah, welcome, especially 100% affordable. I'm not convinced that you have to supply a Section 106 when you're supplying 100%, but if you're offering something else, that'd be great.
So, where do we start? Yeah, congratulations. This is one of the better applications I've seen. I've been on this committee a long time now. Congratulations working with the parish council. And I think it's a scheme. So really all I'm looking at is for, if this is passed today, when are you going to get a shovel in the ground?
Well, as you may have seen, there's a couple of complications with ecology, which is going to cause us some delay. We've got a population of lizards on the site that we had to go through the process of trapping and relocating to a receptor site nearby, so we can only do that when the weather improves, so starting from April onwards, I think. We've also got an archaeology condition to satisfy, so we have to do the ecology, then the archaeology, and then we're looking to get a spade in the ground late summer if we can, but that's how long I think it will probably take to satisfy those conditions.
And I'm also extremely pleased. I had a word with Dan Horn, the housing officer here at Fenland, excellent guy he is too, and I'm really pleased that all these houses, these affordable houses, are going to be either Wilmington Parish or the adjoining village or wherever. I'm absolutely convinced this is a really good application, and I just want to say thank you again for bringing this to us today. Thank you, Councillor Marks.
Thank you. Just really one question on, we've got the Isle of the Ely Way and we've got a public footpath. What provision, are you putting a stile in there, or are you going to put some sort of gate? All that concerns me is obviously it's going to be there's obviously going to be youngsters on site who will see some sort of form of gateway running out onto the 141 is probably not. So what's been sort of like said to be put in there, please?
It's a good question, and if I'm honest, I'm not sure what the detail is around that. I know the footpath is to be retained and left as it is. In terms of the boundary treatment, it's something I'd need to check on, I'm sorry, but yeah, if there needs to be a condition around that, we're happy to have that in place.
Thank you.
So we could put a condition in their office, they could work with officers to ensure that could happen. So any more questions for Mr. Flowers? No, thank you very much. So that just leaves members' questions, clarifications to officers. Councillor Marks.
Just one question. Obviously, we see where the cars are. We've got block paving. Are we classing this as a brownfield site, greenfield site? What are we classing it as or is it half and half, or?
Through you, Chairman, the block paving shown there isn't actually within the application site. The application site is kind of at the end of the block paving.
So what are we classing this as, please?
It's, as far as I'm aware, it's a greenfield site, I think, as the report sets out, and the photos actually of the site indicates fairly overgrown, no development within it. So it's a, just an undeveloped green space.
Thank you.
Lovely. Anybody else at all? Any more questions for officers before I close it? Okay, I'll close that. So now I'd like to invite members to debate the item in respect of material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please do so. Who's going to kick off this debate? Councillor Benny, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think this is a much needed application. It's a good application, as you've said. Truthfully, I don't think this needs a lot of debate. This one sells itself.
Absolutely, it does. I will take Councillor Purser, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, so we were talking about desktop surveys earlier. I didn't do a desktop survey. I actually went out and had a look at it. And my thoughts are, on the one hand, yes, the housing is badly needed as affordable housing. But that area there, when you actually look at it from the road going into Donington or coming out of Wimbledon, is a real mess with all the briar and everything there. So to clean it up and put that nice entrance there like that would clear the area up quite nicely. But plus the fact that we've discussed before that when you come out on these roads, what's the visibility like? Well, it's on a bend there where you can actually see a long way down both bends, so the visibility is really quite good. So yes, I can fully support this. Thank you.
Okay, I can't see any more. We'll close the debate now. I think we've all come to some agreement now, I think. Anyway, officers, have you got anything to add to that? No, so I'm looking for a proposal on this. Councillor French, what are you proposing, please?
Move the officer's recommendation.
Okay, we've got a second for that, Councillor Mifferton. So we've got a proposal to go with officer recommendation to grant this application, proposed by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Mifferton. Can we have a show of hands on that proposal?
It's a unanimous decision, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. That application's been approved. Yeah, we could. Yeah, we can. We can put that in, can't we? The style, can we? Well, you can deal with that, can't you?
Through you, Chairman, that condition wasn't part of the proposal. However, I would just point out on the top left photo, I think you can see that there is a sort of a gate there, but I'm guessing it's one of the fairly standard sort of public right-of-way gates, which is fairly heavy, spring loaded. So I don't know whether that gives council that sort of assurance that there is some prevention for children kind of running straight out onto the 141.
Councillor French.
Yeah, it is a public right of way which county council control, and I think we could ask them to make sure, especially going on to the 141, that that is gated or a style or something goes in there.
Oh, let officers deal with it, can't we? It's not, there'll be some way off, so negotiation, it can take a little time. So anyway, that's it. So that application has been approved, as I was just to reiterate. So I'll now hand over to Kimberly Crow. She's the development officer here at Fenland to present application. It's a TPO, TP 005/2024, agenda item number 8. So when you're nicely seated, Kimberly, off we go.
So agenda item 8 is a tree preservation order for one sycamore tree at Vicarage Close in Chatteris. Thank you. I'd like to bring members' attention to the update report that was circulated yesterday. So the location of the tree is shown on the location plan on the left, and then there's an aerial image where you can see the position of the tree. The tree is situated partially within the rear garden of number 13 St Martin's Road, and then it straddles the eastern boundary of this site, which runs parallel to Vicarage Close. There's just a few photos on screen of the sycamore tree, all taken within Vicarage Close. So matters relating to the issue and confirmation of a TPO are normally dealt with by delegated powers. However, we have received an objection and a letter of response, both from address points along Vicarage Close. The tree is considered to offer wider public amenity value and there is no suitable justification for its removal. The confirmation of a TPO will enable greater control of any works proposed to the tree in question, as well as potentially enabling replacements to be sought if felling were approved in the future. So the recommendation is to accept the TPO.
Thank you, Kimberly. Now I'd like to ask Member Services to read out a written representation from Ingrid Holliday in support of the TPO. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Members of Fenland District Council Planning Committee, following receipt of a letter dated the 25th of February, I wish to present this written statement to the committee. I understand that following the Council's decision to apply a tree protection order on the sycamore tree granted late last year, whose roots are in my garden, the future of this tree is now in jeopardy, as an objection has been raised by an interested party and referred to this meeting for its further consideration. In short, I wish to reiterate the following. Primarily, and what should be of significant importance for this committee's consideration and deliberation right at its onset, is the fact that, as I'm sure you all already know, but the objector may not, is that nationally significant numbers of sycamore trees are suffering and dying from various pathogen-causing diseases, including leaf spot, cristularia depredans, tar spot, Rhytismia aceraneum, and the potentially more damaging sooty bark disease, Cryptostroma corticale, which is a fungal disease and can cause wilting of the tree crown and eventual death of the tree. It can also lead to maple bark disease, which is transferable to humans. Essentially, the sycamore is a tree that is now in danger and therefore worthy of our protection, conservation and care, and should not be allowed to be destroyed or damaged wantonly, even though its leaves and charming helicopter seed pods have a tendency to become a nuisance and fall onto cars and driveways. As I understand it, the objector had late last year collected some fallen branches that fell into Vicarage Close after a few particularly windy days. These were not of any significant size to cause any material or structural damage, and indeed, these were put over my fence into my garden where they remain, should you need to inspect them. Secondly, and perhaps of equal importance, is the fact that the sycamore tree contributes to the countryside's rich tree biodiversity, adding sanctuary to bats, bees and local bird life. They add aesthetic value to our landscape and help to bed in and provide interesting views, colour and texture for local houses to enjoy. What could be of greater value than to teach our young children to watch the tree renew itself each spring and to see local bird life making nests in a beautiful tree at the bottom of your garden? Indeed, in what better way can we impact such values to our children and grandchildren to respect, conserve and value nature if we chop down trees, just to prevent us from needing to wash our cars and tidy our lawns and driveways of leaves? Perhaps a way forward to ensure that all parties affected by this tree are happy and feel represented is to agree a tree management policy for this particular tree to ensure its longevity, health and survival, whilst ensuring that it does not cause unnecessary distress to the objector. I trust that in this way, a tree that was here in its infancy at the time my house was built in 1930 and has survived so far is left to grow, flourish and enhance the vista in Vicarage Close for many years to come. I would like to thank the Planning Committee for considering my objection to the objection. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. So, members' questions to officers, and Councillor French has one.
I did go down and look at this and I really thought I was seeing things. I've listened very carefully to the owner of the tree. If she is the owner, she should have taken better care of it over the years. But the tree is covered in ivy. If you put a TP on it, fine, I don't have an objection to that. But in a few years' time, the tree is going to be totally dead and it's coming down, and then she's going to have to go through a planning application to have a TP removed.
Okay, just can we, while we're can we just have a picture of the tree up? It was only a fleeting look, and then we'll all have a look at it. Yeah. Well, trees are not known to be healthy or don't be healthy if they have ivy on the tree. That is an absolute certainty. When I lived at the walnuts and there's walnut trees, at the first sign of any ivy, I used to get them and clear the ivy off. And it doesn't look to me this has been done on this particular tree whatsoever. But anyway, can you comment on that, David, please?
Through you, Chairman, obviously I'm not an arboriculturalist. However, what I would say is that the council's arboricultural officer has sort of recommended the making of the TPO. Will have assessed the tree and will have assessed its impacts in terms of amenity, and will have made that recommendation in the knowledge that there is ivy sort of on that tree. So, and if he got concerns over the long-term or even the short-term health of that tree, then no doubt would not have been making that recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Marks.
Thank you. Do we actually know who owns the tree? The lady said the roots go under her garden, or into her property, but it didn't actually sound as though she owns the tree. So who does actually, because she talks about, let's have a management plan for the tree. Well, how can you have a management plan for a tree if you don't own the property, own it?
And she intimated, I just come in there, then she intimated that she may own it because the people who put the objection in have thrown all the branches back in her garden, which is, if you own the tree, that's what you have to offer. Who owns the tree?
Sorry, can we just ask Joe to have a look back?
I understand that following the council's decision to apply a tree protection order on the sycamore tree granted late last year, whose roots are in my garden, 13 St Martin's Road, the future of this tree is now in jeopardy.
Still not clear, is it?
Yeah, only the roots are in a garden.
Yeah.
So why would somebody who lives in that street trim it back and chuck it over if it's not her tree? Because normally if your neighbour's tree or fence or hedge, because I've got some of them, so I know, you can cut them back and chuck them over. But
We're going to bring, as it is, questions to officers. I think we'll get them to answer it. Thank you.
Thank you, through Chairman. Documentation on the case file, whilst it may not be 100% categoric proof, does actually indicate that Mrs. Holliday, the lady whose representation Joe's just read out, is the owner.
Okay.
so can I come back and ask, did she request the TPO be put on it last year? Or who did?
Yeah, again, through you, Chairman, we believe that is the situation. Yes, that's been requested by that lady.
You, Councillor French, waving your cup about. Councillor Marks, thank you.
So this gets more confusing, that she wants to then have a commit or some sort of committee or whatever to look after, management committee to look after the tree. It's either her tree or it isn't.
Through you, Chairman, I think we're getting the committees. Yes, you've taken the words out of my mouth there, Chairman. I think to some degree this needs to be quite a simple, or should be quite a simple issue, in terms of the council's arboricultural officer has assessed the tree, believes it to be of merit to deserve a tree preservation order, and the committee needs to make a decision whether it agrees with that recommendation or not. I think in terms of whose tree it is, longer term management plans for that tree, etc., I think to some degree they're sort of very much secondary issues to the main one, which is the tree worthy of a TPO or not, in accordance with the arboricultural officer's recommendation.
I think we're nearly gone. Oh, sorry, Councillor French.
Thanks, David. Yes, the tree officer is the expert, and if he, I mean, I looked at it and I think it's not dead, it's going to be dead soon. But if the owner of the roots wants to preserve it and wants to have a management committee, good on her. Let's hope in a few years' time she's not going to come back with a planning application and either cut it down or chop it up.
Right, off it. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to debate the application. I think, well, we haven't because Councillor Benny wants to add to it. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, me and Councillor French went on Sunday and had a look at this, and to be honest, I thought it's a nice bit of kindling. I mean, this is not the Sycamore Gap, is it? This is not a tree of that stature, nor does it truly add anything to the benefit of St Martin's Road. It's far from it. When I looked at this, we've got an objector who lives opposite in number 3, and I thought, no, he's got a fair point. He's got a fair point. But then I sit here today and I hear from the lady who actually owns the tree. I think she could be a little bit more proactive in looking after it by taking the ivy off it and making it last longer. So we've got an objector, we've got a supporter, and we've got an arbiter that says it's a tree worth keeping. I don't have strong views on it either way. Thing when you're on a planning committee, you've got to make decisions. You always upset somebody and you always please somebody. And truthfully, I think we've got 2 people that, or the lady who owns it wants it, and the arbiter says that the tree is in good health. I question that, but I'm not an arbiter. I'm not a tree specialist, so I can't. And we've got somebody who lives opposite that doesn't want it. So I came here today with a view that that really ought to come down. I wouldn't want that on my boundary, but the lady who lives there and owns it, she does. So that's left me to the conclusion that we probably do need a TPO on it. I think, you know, it's a minor thing, it really, in comparison to what we have here.
Yeah, you're not a tree expert, Councillor Benny, but you've got a chainsaw, haven't you? So, just a flippant comment. But there we are. Councillor Purser, what have you got to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, it could actually lead to an awful lot of tree jokes on this, which I think is could be done. But it looks to me, looking at it, that with the ivy and the state of things, it's going to come down soon anyway. So, yeah. But it just seems to me that the whole thing's going to come down anyway. And when it comes down with whatever, it could actually, if not careful, actually land on somebody if they're walking past. But it just seems that putting a TP on is a complete waste of time to me. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
You can certainly come back on the point, Matthew.
Thank you, Chairman. As part of the process, the arboriculturist does a tempo score. I can't actually remember what it's an acronym for. But basically it goes through a multiple of considerations on whether or not a tree is worthy of protection. And one of those is the life expectancy, and I think it's broken down into 5 categories. Yeah, and I think on this one, even taking into account the ivy's presence, the tree officer has suggested it would have a lifetime expectancy, was it 20 to 40 years? So obviously the ivy will potentially have harm to the tree and will cause difficulties. Obviously, firstly, that ivy could be removed tomorrow, and then obviously that becomes a moot point. Secondly, if the tree does start to become unwell, there may be work they could do to it to mitigate that. And finally, if the tree does die and becomes a risk, they do have the way of just putting in an emergency application. We have 5 days to consider it. So I think the fear factor of eventually of it be dying to some extent exists with any tree, and some of it could be mitigated, as in the ivy could be removed. And secondly, our arboriculturist is suggesting even with the ivy, it probably has a lifetime between 20 and 40 years, I'd say to members.
Just another flippant comment. Perhaps he's joined forces with the highways and done a desktop study of it. But there we go. Anyway, I'm going to make yours the last question in the debate. Hope you've got something really worthwhile to say, Councillor Purser.
Well, I was just going to get to the root of the matter, that's all. But no, a serious thought on it. Looking at it like that, has it been at all, do we know if it's been pollarded at all to try and get to where any possible problems might lay in it at all?
Through Chairman, I don't think we've got that sort of historic information. Say the tree officer will have assessed it on its current condition.
Okay, so I'm going to close this debate now. Have you got anything else to add? No? So then, I'm looking, do I have a proposer to go with officer's recommendation to confirm the TPO on this tree, to confirm it? Have I got Councillor French? What are you proposing to confirm the TPO on
Go
this
with
tree?
officer's recommendation.
Have we got a seconder on that? Councillor Mifferton. So Councillor Mifferton seconding that to put a TPO or keep the TPO or put a TPO on the tree. Can I have a show of hands on that?
That's unanimous, Chairman.
So that TPO has been successful. So Councillor French is waving her cup madly at me and chewing something. So we'll have what time is it now? Could we be back by 20 to 3:45, please? Thank you. 2:45. 2:45. Thank you. Thank you, members, for being back very promptly. I'll now, further ado, I'll hand over to Kimberly Crowe to present application F/YR 24/0557F, agenda item number 9. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 9 is a retrospective fill application for the erection of a hay store, 1.5 metre high weld mesh and 1.8 metre high closed boarded fence at land south of Swan Cottage, accessed from Dykemore Drove in Doddington. I'd just like to bring members' attention to the update report that was circulated yesterday afternoon. So the location plan and aerial photograph show the site outlined in red. Members may recall this application from the January Planning Committee, where it was deferred to allow consultations to be undertaken with highways. So the site plan is shown in on screen. And the elevations and floor plans of the hay store. And the street scene as well. So there's some updated photographs on screen which show the hay store, which has partially been painted green. So following on from the previous deferral of the application, comments were provided from highways suggesting that speed data demonstrating vehicle speeds on the road could result in lesser visibility space being acceptable. However, they also noted within their comments that the space are currently less than 30 metres on site and visibility space for a 30-mile-per-hour road of 43 metres. Therefore, it's not considered that carrying out speed surveys would have served much purpose in this instance. A further reason for refusal has therefore been recommended due to the lack of adequate visibility space from the site and the likelihood of emerging vehicles creating unacceptable highway safety impacts contrary to policy LP15. So the application is therefore recommended for refusal.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. Once again, we have one speaker on this application. I would now like to invite Liam Lunn-Towler. He's the agent to make his presentation to the committee. You've got 5 minutes and you're ready to go, aren't you? Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. Thank you for your time again. As per the previous meeting of this application attended, it was concluded that highways was the main reason that members were concerned about this application. And that's what the deferral was for those comments, and I agreed at the time that we would make any amendments that highways would require. Highways comments were received on the 7th of February. We saw them on the 10th of February, on the Monday. And the third line of highways comments state that they have requested additional information from the applicant regarding the access in the site. That then goes on to explain we need a speed survey. This line is not particularly in the paragraph 3.1 of that report, but I don't think it really matters. We wanted to do a speed survey. On the 10th of February, my colleague notified the applicant about the requirement for a speed survey by highways and went out to get quotes. But on the 25th of February, we have received a notification that the application was returned back to the committee today. So we've worked as quickly as possible to try to get these speed surveys sorted, but we've only had 2 weeks to get it sorted from receiving the comments till having the notification, so it was already coming to committee. My colleague asked if we could defer it to get that survey, but that was rejected. We think this application is returned to committee too soon. We have the speed survey specialist ready to get started. The time frame for this is roughly 3 to 4 weeks to get the survey report, and then we can naturally agree with highways and sort it and make the appropriate amendments to the scheme. I suggest the Make Committee would allow for a survey and a consultation, and I would agree it's an extension of time to facilitate that, to bring it so it's ready for members. We are still committed to amending the scheme to highways to a satisfactory resolution, as I tried to make last time. Therefore, we do ask for a deferral and additional time for the survey so we can have the scheme ready for members to review appropriately. As mentioned, the outside of the building has already been painted green, as mentioned previously as well. So, yeah, I'll take any questions, really.
Yep. That's short and sweet. Councillor French.
Thank
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. You said you were surprised it came up so quickly. Had you actually spoken to the officers, suggesting that this was too soon?
My colleague, upon notification of it coming to committee the same day, notified officers that there's not been enough time for us to get anything sorted. I assume by how quickly the notification was released, within 2 weeks, within 12 working days, I assume officers already had the opinion it was coming back anyway. So I assume within 5 working days. But yes, we made that. We requested if we could push it to the April committee, which would allow time to at least get the survey conducted. But no.
Any more questions at all? For Mr. Luntella? No? Members? No? Sure? No? Okay, thanks. Very good. Thank you. So, members, time to put questions to officers. Councillor Benny.
Thank you very much. Question for officers. Would an extension of time, and they say we should determine this by the 14th of March, which means it wouldn't come back to April committee, would that make any difference, do you think, to the outcome of the of your recommendation?
Chairman, I think as the report sets out, the view of officers is that the lack of visibility is kind of so great that any speed survey to be conducted really wouldn't serve a purpose. It's a 60-mile-an-hour road. The visibility displays required are 215 metres. Highways are saying that they observed less than 30 metres visibility. Even if a speed survey is done and concludes that the average speeds along the road are, for argument's sake, 40 miles an hour, it's still, the visibility display required would still be significantly more than 30 metres. So, as such, the view of officers is that he's actually putting the applicant to undue expense and trouble to basically prove that there's not adequate visibility. So the view that we've taken is that the expeditious way to sort of take the application forwards really is to bring it in front of members at the earliest opportunity for a decision to be made on the basis of the highway comments.
Carry on.
Also, I visited this and visited this site before, when it came to the committee before, and I know it's not really relevant to the application we've got in front of us, but there's 6 new mobile homes appeared on there. Have they got planning permission as well? Is there any record of that, please?
Through you, Chairman, I'm not aware that those have got permission, although I wouldn't like to say that that's an absolutely definitive answer. However, I think, as you've indicated, that's not really material to what's being looked at by the committee this afternoon.
That's something that officers, I'm sure, can look at a further date. Okay, Matt?
To you, Chairman, just obviously in relation to the other the initial query by Councillor Benny, just obviously this application is retrospective. You know, I think the reason for refusal that's been added is in relation to highway safety, and I think any extension with a very unlikely positive outcome is just putting people's lives at risk at the end of the day in relation to highway safety.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Anyway, more questions to officers at all? No, nobody wants to do. No one wants to do more. Okay, I think we've been clear on what the officer's advice is. So, I'm going to invite members to debate the item in respect of material considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, raise your hand, and Councillor Benny's just done that.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, we deferred this to see whether it had impacts on highway safety, and we've now got an additional reason to refuse this on highway safety. I think officers have got this one absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, anybody else want to add to the debate? Yeah. We decry highways sometimes, don't we? And we have done this afternoon. But this time I think they have been out and done a survey. And all the information is, in my opinion, there. It's a 60-mile-an-hour road, and I live down that road, not as far down as that, I have to admit, certainly down Benwick Road I did some years ago, and cars do 60 miles an hour down there. There's nothing to stop them doing it. And if the differential is we can't, so great as we can't get the visibility displays for the distance, we can't go against highways on that. You know, they can come back with another scheme if that's what they want to do. But this particular scheme, we just cannot allow this. That's just my way of thinking. So I'm afraid officers have got this one absolutely right, but we are where we are. Thank you. Anybody else want to join the debate? No, not at all. Okay. No, debate's closed. Have you got anything else to say, officers? No. So I'm looking for a proposal to go with officer recommendation to refuse this. Councillor Benny?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I propose we go with the officer's recommendation and refuse this application.
So we'll now hand over to Kimberly Crowe again to present application F/YR24/0970. It's an FDC application and it's the agenda item number 10, where Councillor Benny's just going to go and leave his seat and go to the public gallery. So Kimberly, when you're ready. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm a member of Cabinet, but I've got no personal interest and did not discuss this, so I have an open mind.
Kimberly.
Thank you, Chair. Agenda item 10 is a full application for the erection of one dwelling at land south of 8 Crown Avenue, Christchurch. So the location plan and aerial photographs show the site outlined in red, and access to the site is situated within flood zone 2. It's apparent from the location plan and aerial image that Crown Avenue has a very linear pattern of development. The site was formerly an Anglian water compound and was made redundant following a replacement compound adjacent. The site has not been maintained, and there's now dense weeds and brambles growing within the site, resulting in the site blending into the surrounding landscape. The site is therefore not considered to fall within the definition of brownfield land as set out within paragraph 10.4 of the committee report. So there was an outline application with matters committed in respect of access refused in December 2022, and the indicative site plan for this application is shown on screen. This application was considered contrary to policies LP3 and LP16D due to being backland development and out of character. The application was also considered to provide insufficient private amenity space and therefore contrary to policy LP2 and LP16H. So the proposed site plan for the current application is shown on screen. There's 2 tandem parking spaces to the side of the dwelling, and private amenity space to the northeast. So those are the proposed elevations shown on screen, and the proposed floor plans as well. And there's a proposed street scene showing the proposed dwelling in the context of number 8 Crown Avenue. So the site photographs are shown on screen. The top 2 photos show the access into the site adjacent to number 8 Crown Avenue. The bottom left photo shows the street scene along Crown Avenue, and the bottom right photo shows in more detail the nature of the site with significant established overgrowth. The proposal would form backland development rather than residential infilling, and as such the scheme is considered to be contrary to policy LP3. Crown Avenue is characterised by 2-storey semi-detached dwellings situated close to the back edge of the footway. Backland development would appear out of character and therefore also contrary to policy LP16. The access to the site is situated within flood zone 2 and therefore at medium risk of flooding. The flood risk impacts of the development would only be acceptable if the application could demonstrate that the sequential test had been passed. No sequential test has been submitted with the application. The application is therefore considered contrary to policy LP14 and as such is recommended for refusal.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kimberly, once again. And now I'd like to invite Rebecca White. She's the agent to make your presentation to the committee. Obviously, you've got 5 minutes when you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members. The proposed development is situated on a brownfield site formerly occupied by a sewage treatment plant that was decommissioned in 2010. It is common for abandoned brownfield sites to become overgrown, and I disagree with the planning officer's comment that this leads to the site blending into the surrounding landscape. The site, in fact, is unkempt and quite frankly is an eyesore at the end of Crown Avenue. I don't believe the dense vegetation changes the classification of the site. The ground assets and boundaries are still present on site, albeit obscured by the overgrowth, and if the site was cleared to clearly show its brownfield elements, it would then become a magnet for antisocial behaviour due to its accessible yet hidden location, as well as a financial burden on the council to keep it maintained. The planning officer states that the site's location behind 8 Crown Avenue classifies it a backland development, rather than residential infilling under policy LP3. The existing access is located beside 8 Crown Avenue, and although the new dwelling is situated towards the rear, it remains visible from the street due to the site's constraints and the necessity of keeping it within flood zone 1. This application proposes the development of a brownfield site within the village settlement to provide a new residence, thereby positively supporting community growth, which is supported by the parish council, and also responds to a national pressure to provide new housing. While Crown Avenue predominantly features 2-storey semi-detached homes, proposing similar properties on this site would be inappropriate due to the harm and impact of overlooking and reduction of privacy for neighbours. Therefore, the proposal is for a single detached 2-storey house with reduced eaves to mitigate these concerns. Unlike the first two reasons why the officer is recommending this application for refusal, the third reason was not addressed or brought to our attention during the application, and it wasn't part of the previous application either. Contrary to the statement indicating that the site is in a high-risk flood area, a flood risk assessment was submitted in support of the application and concluded that due to the benefits of the defences that provide protection, the site is not at risk. I understand that the planning flood maps do not account for the existing flood defences, which effectively protect this area. The strategic flood risk assessment maps for Kings Lynn and West Norfolk Borough Council demonstrate that the site is not at risk during the 0.5% annual probability tidal event with climate change or the 1% annual probability fluvial event with climate change. Furthermore, the site remains safe during a breach of these defences. It is important to acknowledge that the new proposed dwelling is located all within Flood Zone 1, and it is just part of the access route that passes through Flood Zone 2, as does this end of Crown Avenue. While it is recognised that there are settlements within the district with potential development sites in Flood Zone 1, it should also be noted that these areas in Flood Zone 1 often represent dry islands surrounded by Flood Zones 2 and 3. Considering access routes on a broader scale, it can be argued that most sites have access routes within flood zones due to the low-lying land surrounding these settlements. Therefore, given the Fenland landscape, it would be unreasonable for a development to fail the sequential test solely due to having part of an access route in Flood Zone 2. Thus, this site is considered to pass the sequential test, and from our understanding of the local policy, a separate sequential test was therefore not submitted, but it could be submitted if needed. In conclusion, approving this application will not only rejuvenate an unused brownfield and overgrown site, but also enhance the area's safety and aesthetics, reduce council maintenance costs, and provide much needed housing, thereby making a positive contribution to the area. And therefore I hope the committee will consider the broader benefits and support this proposal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions to Mrs White, and you've got one, Councillor French. Thank you.
Thank you. I might have two. You say that Fenland Council obtained this land in 2020. Have you any idea how come they had this land when they sold their housing stock in 2009?
No, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that one.
Okay, thank you. And obviously reading through the flooding issues and no sequential test. I mean, I've heard what you said, but I think I'll take that one up with the officers in a minute.
Thank you for your presentation. Just to confirm, it was an ex-yard, so it's never been connected as a garden to the property in front of that. It's always been a yard. Thank you.
Most definitely it has. Anybody else at all? Any other? No, can't see anybody. Thank you very much for your presentation. Members, questions to officers, and Councillor French is no doubt got one.
I'm
Thank you.
sure officers know what I'm going to ask. Is this an incomplete application due to the fact that we don't have a sequential test due to further conversations, we've had in the past?
David, difficult one.
Through you, Chairman, there is no, or in officer's view, there is no adequate sequential test submitted with the application, hence reason for refusal 3 that's recommended. Whether members want to, or whether that classes the application as being incomplete or not, I'll leave for members to decide, but certainly the absence of that is in officer's view sufficient for a reason for refusal.
Okay. Any more Councillor Marks?
I'll stick my head on the noose. Right, so regarding sequential test, if, as the applicant said, they are happy to come forward with a sequential test, would it be better if because it sounds like the ball's back in our court and we seem to be getting it wrong on a fairly regular basis because it's interpretation all the time, would it be better we defer this for a month, allowing them to come back with a sequential test?
Yeah, that's the point. Did I see your hand raised, Councillor Purser? No. Okay. This is a difficult one. I found out when it came to me after the first time that I did turn it down in whenever it was. But I went and had a look for the second time, and indeed, it's absolutely my belief that it's a brownfield site. It can't be any other. The MPPF says we need to make use of a brownfield site first. So it's my view, and I absolutely believe it's my view, that this time, knowing what I didn't know last time, through either it was my fault or wasn't explained or wasn't in the report, I can't remember now, but this is definitely a brownfield site, and I shall be supporting this application because I think it's right, you know, and it will make a positive contribution to, in my opinion, to the village. And I'll just listen to what other people say, but I'm in support of this one. Councillor Marks, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. We did question to officers. We did discuss this in Chairman's briefing, and I believe you were going to clarify when a greenfield site becomes a brownfield site and when it goes back to being a greenfield site, what the feeling was. Could we have that clarification, please?
Through you, Chairman, I think Mr. Lee will probably talk a bit about the kind of the abandonment issue and sort of timescales in terms of that. However, I think it's probably just worth reiterating the advice that's contained within the glossary of the MPPF, which is quite clear that previously developed, or the definition of previously developed land excludes land that was previously developed, but where the remains of the permanent structure or fixed surface structure have blended into the landscape. Now, as far as I'm aware here, there are no buildings left on site. Any sort of structures or any remains of the previous operation are very much at ground level, and I think you only have to sort of look at that bottom right hand photo there to effectively see how the site has kind of blended a little bit. In terms of I suppose the wider issues about the acceptance or otherwise of it being brownfield land, clearly the council refused an application previously for development of the site. The condition of the land, whether it was brownfield or not, probably hasn't changed massively since then. And I think in terms of the wording of the MPPF, giving weight towards developing brownfield sites, that hasn't changed either. So I think if members were minded to grant the application, there would need to be an explanation as to what's changed from that previous refusal. And on the surface of it, I can't see that too much has.
Thank you, Chairman. As Councillor Mark said, I've spoke about the issue of abandonment. I think the question is not as simple as, you know, maybe just first seen, is it brownfield / previously developed land, or is it greenfield? Because we acknowledge that there has been historic development on there, and then you have to decide if, through the planning, courts have decided what is abandonment, see whether that benefit of being previously developed land has fallen away. The courts have found that there were 4 tests for when considering whether a site has benefits from abandonment or whether it still benefits from the lawful use. As always with all these things, there'll always be a planning judgment requirement. There's never going to be one that is the silver bullet. They all vary. It's about having as knowledgeable readers, which we all are, making an informed judgment. And these 4 tests are the physical condition of the buildings. As we've just discussed, the buildings have been removed, the physical structures have been removed, so that would lean to the idea that there is abandonment has happened. The second test is the period of non-use. 15 years is not an extensive period, but abandonment has been found on when it's been a lot shorter period than 15 years, so 15 years is an acceptable thing to tick towards abandonment. Whether there has been any other uses, to my knowledge, there hasn't been any other uses of the site, so that's to a certain extent a neutral point. It's not, it doesn't weigh towards abandonment, but quite often with abandonment cases there hasn't been another use, there's just been no activity. And the fourth one is the owner's intentions. So obviously we need to look back for the original owners, not our current owners. The original owners obviously used it as a storage area and yeah, exactly. A sewage treatment and all the rest of it. And they've moved that, we understand, to the site next to it. This was around 15 years ago. Obviously, they haven't used it since then. Obviously, there was no clear intent to carry on using that lawful use from that moment. The current owners, irrespective of who they are, to my knowledge, have never intended to use it for the lawful use. Therefore, I would suggest that does weigh towards abandonment. But if members are, I think, if we are looking to defer it, which someone has mentioned in relation to the need for sequential tests, I think that it may be best, and members have some queries on this, is if we bring back, when we bring back the report that we'll have to, is we can have a little bit of a summary of this rather than the members just having to hear me verbalise it and do it quite succinctly to provide you with a bit more information for making an informed judgment, because at the end of the day, it's yourselves as the decision makers that will have to make that decision whether it's abandonment or not. You've got advice from officers in the report. If members want more info, we can provide that. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, I think I have made, for me, sorry, sorry, Councillor Marks, I'll leave it to you then. Sorry, it's rude of me to interject. Sorry, when you have to speak.
Can I just come back on that point? If the present owners cut the, because we know it hasn't had a building on it previously, and it's been a yard, so if the present owners went in there, cut all the weeds down, and started to use it, would they need planning permission to use it for, say, a yard, or does the current planning permission that it had, cover that even 15 years on? Because I know farmers that leave fields for 15 years, let alone to without saying the fields being abandoned as well.
Through you, Chairman, to be a little bit flippant, I don't need agriculture isn't development, so you wouldn't matter. You don't need planning permission ever to do anything that's agriculture.
Could I then add in farmers' barns? We're seeing plenty of those laying around the countryside.
Still be agriculture, but what the point is, that comes back to the 4 tests. The farmer always intends at some stage to use his building. So this is probably where we're now moving on to a point that would be better to be put into some sort of narrative for members. So one of the cases in relation to abandonment actually relates to a chimney basically sticking out of a bush, but it was found that it was not abandoned because they'd paid council tax and things like that, and there's appeals around that. So it is very much a balancing exercise. And so if members have questions about whether or not it's been abandoned, rather than either myself making just small pocket-sized responses and replying to direct questions, and members having to process all of this, if we are looking to defer, I would just advise that we put this in part of a report. It won't be extensive, and then members have got that in front of them to be able to make judgment. And we can play a bit of context around the case law, etc. It's not just going to be a case of varied responses, and that would be my advice, Chairman. Thank you.
Wow. I've got some more questions in the debate, certainly. No.
Well,
Ladies
yeah,
first.
I've listened to Matthew, and obviously we've had a previous conversation about 175 and the MPPF. I think it would only be right that this application was deferred and officers come back with a proper narrative.
Oh. Okay. Well, you can say that in debate, Councillor French, and you have done a little bit early, but we are where we are. So any questions to officers before I debate the application? No? Okay. So we're going to debate the application in respect of material planning considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, and Councillor French has already made her points. And sorry, you have. And Councillor Marks?
I've heard what officers said, and I'll say, having visited the site, something's got to happen with the site. What's its best use? It stands there redundant now. Yeah, we're being told it's backland development in one way, but then we're told it wasn't the properties to the side of it. So I can't see how it can almost be backland because it's got its own roadway down there. So is it a brownfield site? Is it a greenfield site? I'm sure if you took those bushes down, you would come to some sort of concrete or whatever, which to me would then say it becomes a brownfield site still, although it hasn't been used for 15 years, so we're led to believe. Do we want to defer, or do we just make a decision on it? I'm more minded probably to say bringing it back to make a decision today, but I'll listen to what the people have got to say.
Got to say a bit. Yeah, whenever it was, I knocked that back on delegation, and I've made a mistake. But I've learned since it's been come back to me before, because obviously I called this in on the scheme of delegation, which I'm quite entitled to do, and I found out it's a brownfield site, and just because, in my opinion, the opinion is hasn't been used for 15 years, doesn't necessarily mean it's abandonment. It's a piece of land. So I'm absolutely convinced it's a brownfield site. And also, I'll go on to say that it will make a positive contribution to to Christchurch, and it will make a positive contribution to Crown Avenue. So, although I accept and will accept a deferment, I would rather, when it comes forward, I would rather look and think, actually, my comments are taken into consideration, and look forward to and passing this application forthwith. Because, but I'm happy to listen. It's the Mifferton.
Sorry, Chair, just a point of clarity. If we do defer, are we deferring it based on sequential tests? Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what we defer it on.
Okay.
But I wouldn't, to go on from that, I sort of wouldn't die in a ditch if it was deferred, but my preference would be a personal preference. It meets all the criteria, hasn't got a sequential test. We obviously, but the applicant has said that she'll get one, and that's fair enough, for me, it was understood by the applicant that they didn't feel it was necessary, but they do say now that they will. They're happy to undertake one. Sorry, rambling on. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come in on the sequential test point because I think it's really clear, the committee needs to be really clear that the sequential test and the outcome of the sequential test needs to be a predetermination issue. It's not something that can be addressed through conditions. So I think it's not lawfully open to the committee to grant consent subject to the applicant carrying out a sequential test at a later date. I think you either need to be satisfied a sequential test isn't required, and I think given that the access to the site is within flood zone 2, that's a difficult conclusion to reach on the facts of this site, or else you need to defer to allow the applicant to carry out a sequential test and come back to the committee with that evidence to then decide whether you're satisfied either that they can pass the sequential test or that they fail the sequential test but consent can be granted nevertheless applying the exemption in the MPPF. So my strong advice to the committee would be if you have questions about the validity or the need for a sequential test and you are minded to require the applicant to provide one to satisfy you, then I don't think you can grant but require a sequential test, I think you would have to defer for them to be able to bring that back to you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Matt?
Chairman, just so it's put to mind, obviously, if members are to defer, then we can ask them to do sequential tests. I'd also maybe ask, as the LPA, we can ask the applicant if they have any evidence that goes ways one way or the other in relation to the point about previously developed land as well, because obviously we're looking at it relatively cold and we've just gone through the test and what the information is before us. There's potential that the applicant may have some information that goes above and beyond that. So, if we're looking to do that, I think it'd be best if we ask for both things. That would be my recommendation to members rather than just one.
Okay, so I've listened intently to what Victoria said, and yeah, I'm sort of leaning towards a deferment now, but we pass this application and just defer just the sequential test. We agree. It's the development is right there, but if the applicant can sustain getting a sequential test and it is passed, that's all it all comes back on. I don't know if you agree to that, anybody?
So basically what we're saying is we believe it passes everything apart from the sequential test. So the only thing they need to come back on, as opposed to whether it's a brownfield site, whether it's a greenfield site, whatever, the only thing we are concerned with is as long as it passes a sequential test. They haven't got to bring back everything, just that one part.
Absolutely right. That's my way of thinking.
Chairman, I'm probably going to need to lean on Victoria for this. Just thinking about the decision-making process and the ability to do that, with the fact that you'd, in theory, as the committee members now, would need to challenge and over why the reason for refusal, the other reason for refusal, have fallen away, and then there could also be issues around attendance at the committee next one because you're actually halfway through a decision-making process. I think just to some extent, I don't sound flippant, it almost doesn't matter for the decision-making process if we just say we're deferring it on X, for members to have, if they've come to a similar thought process today, they can still come to that thought process again at the next committee. But for the management of the decision-making process would be very awkward, if that makes sense. I think maybe you can help me out with that. Eloquent that bit better.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult because you're almost seeking to establish the principle of development on all other grounds apart from the sequential test. But the sequential test itself goes to the principle of whether this development is acceptable on this site or not. So you're almost, I don't think you're straying necessarily into the territory of illegality, but it's a very difficult decision to rationalise, and it seems to me a slightly unnecessary decision to rationalise. If you aren't satisfied, well, if you consider that a sequential test is required, I don't think you can lawfully grant consent today because you have formed the view that that's required, and so I struggle to see why the committee would risk fettering its discretion at the next committee or to seek to determine some elements of a scheme. It's difficult because the scheme needs to be considered in the whole against the development plan as a whole, and you need to be satisfied that that scheme as a whole on that site is compatible with your development plan. And I think it's very difficult to start picking and choosing elements of a scheme which are acceptable and elements which aren't. So my strong advice would be to take no decision on any of the merits of the application until you've got the evidence you need on sequential test. If you want to be satisfied as to the brownfield or not question of the land, then you can also gather that information, and then the committee can come together next month and have regard to all of the material considerations, weigh them all in the relevant balance, consider them all against the development plan as a whole, and reach a determination at that point.
No. Yeah, I'm not really convinced. Really, I'll take Councillor French, then I'll take Councillor Marks. But you've got your light on, Councillor Mifford.
I've listened to Victoria. I think the suggestion of splitting this only on a sequential test, I think we'll just make the hash of it, to be honest. I think it's we long-standing councillors know it's a brownfield site. I've been here since 1999. We know the housing stock was sold in 2009, so I don't understand how Fenland acquired that in 2010, because we weren't supposed to be buying anything. But I think we need the full information from the owners of it. When did they acquire it? Is it a brownfield site? We know it's a brownfield site because it's been previously developed. But I don't think we can sit here this afternoon and say, right, we're going to, subject to the other two conditions, wait for a sequential test. I think it's got to be done as a whole, not bits and pieces, because it is bits and pieces. And I don't think it looks very professional for this committee or officers.
Did you want to come back on that, Councillor Marks?
I think I will bow down to Councillor French's longer standing on the planning committee than myself, but I do believe when we've done this in the past, we've had we've had part and parcel, we've gone back on 1 point as opposed to, so we've removed 3 points and got to the 1 point when it's come back to us. However, if Councillor French feels that, then I believe a deferral is the correct way. I just think we're just adding more into the mix for them to come back with, as opposed to the one thing which is basically, we are all, I believe, the committee feels that it is a brownfield site, so why are we wasting time trying to work out whether it is or whether it isn't? And all that process, it comes down to just the sequential test.
That is absolutely right. This is the point I've been making now for 10 minutes, and also, in my opinion, makes a positive contribution to the village and the street scene. So, you know, I'll be guided by whoever, but that is my thought entirely. But there we go.
If I could just offer what I hope is a helpful comment to the committee that might actually reassure, I hope this is how it will be taken, but actually, because you haven't got the evidence to know whether the sequential test is going to be satisfied or not, you may find, once that evidence has been gathered and you come back to this next month, that you actually need to turn to the exemption test, because if the development can't pass a sequential test because there were lower risk alternative sites, then you might actually be in the territory of needing to make an evaluation of the flood risk of the site and whether it's safe against flood for its lifetime, and then to weigh that with the benefits of the scheme. Now, having some really clear, compelling evidence and a really clear steer on whether the site is previously developed land, brownfield or not, might actually be relevant to how you carry out that balancing exercise under the exemption test. So whilst you might be satisfied on your own knowledge that it's a brownfield site, actually when you come to consider how you want to deal with the flood risk next time and to determine whether you might be able to still grant consent notwithstanding the site failing the sequential test, that evidence might also be quite helpful to weighing how you feel about that balance required under the exemption test. And I think this is why I say you need to be careful that it is all connected, even when it doesn't necessarily seem to be at first blush.
Well, I'm getting worn out, to be fair. So I think I'm going to bow down to this. I don't agree with it, but we are where we are. So
take a vote.
I'm just going to ask officers. Have you got anything more to say before I look in for a proposal?
All I would say is, I can only echo what Victoria says with relation to the need to balance it, and it would be much better, I think, if it all came back just next month. Hopefully, we'll be fine.
Okay. Right. So I'm looking for a proposer here. Come on, Councillor French.
Defer.
Defer it. You're going to second it, Councillor Marks, are you? So we've got a proposal to defer this application in its entirety, unfortunately. Is it to defer this application, proposed by Councillor French, seconded by Councillor Marks? Can I have a show of hands on that one?
4 votes, Chairman.
Those against? Right, with that,
This is exactly the same sequential test as it was last month.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is a full application to erect 9 single-storey dwellings, site of the former gas distribution centre on Gas Road in March. initially draw members' attention to the update report that's been circulated. So the application site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. It sits within a sort of a reasonably established residential area within March on the corner of Gas Road and Kirkogden Close. To the northwest of the site is sort of the remains of, or the remaining gas distribution station, while the site itself has a high pressure gas main running through it and was historically the town gas works going back a number of years. So the existing site plan is on screen. The high pressure pipeline comes out of the west side of the gas sort of station, runs south through the indicated existing roadway before running east adjacent to the southern boundary of the site and then sort of out into Gas Road. So the proposed site plan is on screen. This shows an access road coming off Gas Road with 6 properties to the south of this, shown in the kind of orange colour. And then the further 3 properties are shown fronting Gas Road directly to the north of that access road, say again shown in the orange colour. At the rear of the site is a turning head and sort of communal parking area, and I would initially draw members' attention to the sort of relatively isolated location of this car parking area relative to the dwellings, which raises various sort of safety and security concerns as set out within the report, and also some amenity issues as well in terms of the detachment between car parking and sort of residential units. In addition, there is also a safety and security concern regarding a 1 metre footpath that's shown to the rear of units 1 to 3. So 1 to 3 are the ones fronting directly onto Gas Road. So at the rear of those properties and between sort of those gardens and the gas distribution station is a 1 metre wide footpath, which you might just be able to make out on this plan. I would also just draw members' attention on this plan to the dwellings on Kirkogden Close, which sit to the north. And sort of the setback of these from the edge of the carriageway compared to the proposal, and also the sort of relative separation between these units as well. I think the overall kind of tightness of this scheme is perhaps best indicated by plots 7 and 8, which sits south of that access road. They're sort of in the run of 4 dwellings that you can perhaps see. So those 2 properties have their sort of main access doors in the side elevations. They sit approximately opposite each other and share a 1 metre wide footpath that accesses both those properties. So this is the site layout that was submitted and approved previously on an application back in 2017-2018 time. This was for a slightly bigger site, as you can perhaps see. However, this did propose 19 dwellings. Some of these were sort of 2.5 storey, so obviously of a slightly smaller footprint, given that they weren't sort of bungalows. However, I think this does show that it's possible to get a scheme on the site that has greater sort of separation, that does have a setback from Gas Road, and which would appear an improvement from a design point of view, and more in keeping perhaps with the surrounding area. Moving on to street scene drawings, these are shown on screen, so showing the single story nature of the development and the kind of differing house types that are proposed. So the upper image shows the dwellings which sit to the south of the access road. The access to plots 7 and 8, which I referenced earlier, is perhaps evident here. It kind of in the middle of that run of 4 dwellings. You can just see the sort of the canopies for both of those access points, kind of almost joining up in the middle of that kind of footpath. And then the lower image shows the street scene as presented to Gas Road itself. And then just moving on to various sort of photos of the site and the surrounding area. So in particular, sorry, just to go back to the photo of Kirkogden Close, which is the upper right image, would just sort of draw members' attention to the relatively sort of spacious nature of Kirkogden Close, and the fact that those properties that are shown there, kind of how they're set back from the back edge of the carriageway. So in summary, the site is within the built form of March and represents the potential redevelopment of a large and prominent site. Consequently, the broad principle of development is supported, as evidenced by the previous grant of permission on the site. However, the application submitted is considered to have a substandard layout as set out within the report, and if permitted, the development would be at odds with the prevailing character of the area and would create an overall poor quality living environment for future residents. As such, the recommendation is to refuse the application as set out within the agenda. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, David. We have no speakers on the application, so I'd like to invite members to put questions to officers, please. And Councillor Marks has one.
Having just seen the last application, which was an abandoned, allegedly brownfield site, hadn't been used for 15 years, surely that takes, this is exactly the same. This site has not been used in at least 20 years that I've been coming to March. It's been cleaned, it's got overgrowth. Do we not fall into the same situation again? Is this a greenfield site?
Well, I think there's some relevant points need answering there, because it's been about, I should say that's been like that 25 years, if not more, because I know this site really well. It was an old gas retort house many years ago.
Because the old NTS, National Tyres, was there, wasn't it, originally? Where
no,
across the road.
That was across the road.
Yeah, across the road. So that was when that was taken down. Well, that's got to be 15 to 20 years
ago. But anyway, I'll carry on in the debate. I'll let David answer that. Just give me time.
Thank you. Through you, Chairman. I think we're looking at a slightly different nature of site here. One, the scale of it. Two, has it actually returned and blended into the kind of the natural form of the area? I don't think it perhaps has. And I think more crucially, this is a site that is effectively within the core of the settlement. We're not looking at a site that's on the edge of the settlement as we were with Christchurch. This is in the core of the settlement, and the principle of development of a site, notwithstanding whether it's brownfield or greenfield, within the built form of a settlement, is deemed acceptable under the policies of your local plan.
Okay, any more questions to officers? Oh, Councillor French? No, you're debating. Councillor Mifferton, thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Just a question to officers. Regarding the design and layout of the site, can I just ask, did the architects work with officers? Because usually that's the case, isn't it, when this was put together? Thank you.
Through you, Chairman, to the best of my knowledge, there's not been any pre-application inquiries submitted on the site in relation to this development.
So, I've got one now then. So, better be careful. So, is there enough amenity space on those dwellings for a start? And is it going to be? Are they going to be allowed? For vegetable patches, are they going to be allowed there? Is there going to be anything allowed there? Is it all going to be, or is it all going to be concreted over, tarmacked over, so it's like an impermeable surface?
Through you, Chairman, I think it's evident from the site plan that all of the units have got the necessary amenity space in terms of sort of garden size as set out in policy LP16 of the local plan. In terms of the remediation of the site, I think there's information within the report in terms of the comments that have been made by environmental health and the need to obviously put, shall we say, cleaner soil on the site. So I'm assuming that the long-term intention for any redevelopment of this site would be ultimately that the soil would be clean enough to be a conventional garden.
Yeah, because I'll leave it for the debate. Yeah, thank you for that. Anybody else got any more questions for officers before we do go into debate? Yep.
Chairman, just to answer the question certain definitively in relation to pre-act, the application form doesn't indicate there has been any pre-act. So yeah, we're pretty sure there wasn't.
Did you want to speak now, Councillor French? Thank you. You may go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I do know this site exceptionally well. It is part of my district and town wards. I have looked at this. I would say it's probably not been used for maybe 30 odd years. But anyway, that's a different matter. As far as I'm concerned, it's overdevelopment of the site. Bearing in mind, if you look all around the area, you've got Kirk Ogden, you've got various other elderly bungalows, and to suggest that you put car parking away from the actual dwellings is an absolute nonsense. The footpath, 1 metre. A lot of people are disabled today, and 1 metre wouldn't be enough for, I don't believe, a disability buggy. And if they were going to have to go from their house up to the car park, I just think it's nonsense. I think it's overdevelopment. The site is right for development at the right development, and this is not the right one.
So now I will go. Yeah, this is one of the worst applications I've seen, whereas the agenda item number 7 was one of the best. This is one of the worst. I know this site. My dad used to have a scrapyard, and it was on some of this site. But he packed up in 1981, so that's 45 years ago, isn't it? 44 years ago. And I can say, I can tell this committee now, there's all sorts of contaminants in there. I know it's been recognised in the report, but I can tell you categorically there is. There's arsenic in there. There's as I said, there's other things in there. And what worries me is that arsenic in that site and all the bits and pieces in that site will last thousands of years. Okay? And it also worries me that we're going to put on 12 inches of soil on there, or 2 foot of soil on there, or whatever, and say, oh, well, that's all right, because it just won't be. The 19, in my opinion, what we gave planning permission for some years ago, it was never brought forward because it's unviable. And this is not only unviable, it's a bad case of putting this application before committee. So my opinion is the officers have got this absolutely right. As Councillor French points out, there could be some sort of development on there. We know that, but this is not the right one. We should not, in the guy said he can make the best of this site. He put it in in the email he sent to us, but we should take no notice of that. We should refuse this application, in my opinion, and ask him to put in a more comprehensive, better application brought before us. So in short, I recommend that we refuse this and go with officer recommendation. Thanks. Because we're still in debate. Okay, that's fine then. Right, anybody else got anything to say? Yeah, Councillor Perth.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I've known this site even longer than Councillor French. I used to walk past it at school every day, and it's basically just non-viable. It's just not right. I totally echo what you say. Totally echo Councillor French. Are just not viable, and it's very poorly put together as well. So I'd totally say yes, refuse. Thank you.
Yeah, please, somebody takes notes of what I say then. So I always thought you were a good chap. Anyway, I'm going to finish the debate now. So I'm looking for a proposal on this. Councillor Mifferton, what are you proposing?
Propose we go with officers' recommendations to refuse, Chairman.
Looking at it, you're going to second that, Councillor Purser. So we've got a recommendation to go with officer recommendation to refuse this application, proposed by Councillor Mifferton and seconded by Councillor Purser. Can I have a show of hands on that proposal?
Application refused, Chairman.
That has been refused indeed. Thank you. I hand over to David Rowan to present application F/YR24/07070, agenda item number 12. So David, when you're ready, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is an outline application with matters committed in respect of access and scale to erect up to 4 dwellings at 94 Westfield Road, Mayney. Initially draw members' attention to the update report that's been circulated in respect to this application. So the site is shown in red on the location plan and aerial photo. Sits immediately to the east of the site, which was considered earlier this afternoon under item 5 on the agenda. So the application is in outline with access and scale committed. So the access is shown from Westfield Road to the left side of the existing dwelling, which is to remain, with the access road then shown running along kind of the western boundary of the site, with the actual residential development then to the east of that, and then kind of coming to the termination with a sort of a turning area in front of a further dwelling. There is a proposed turning area shown as well on the eastern side of the site, kind of halfway along, just adjacent to the attenuation pond that's shown there as well. A drainage connection to the Darcy Low drain is shown to the north of the site, which, when you're looking at the location plan, explains the sort of the fact that there's a sort of spur of red line running to the north. While the layout is largely indicative, it's considered that this is representative of how the site would broadly have to be developed for the quantum of development proposed, given the overall constrained nature. This does cause some concerns in terms of the quality of development which could come forward, and members' attention is drawn to the position of the gardens of the proposed dwellings, the need for these to have high boundary treatments to safeguard privacy, and the combination with the treatment to the western boundary and the kind of subsequent tunnel effect which will be created along that roadway. Additionally, the proposed turning head in the middle of the site is not considered acceptable, and the parking shown for each dwelling is not really workable. I think there's also potential for the dwellings to be sort of overlooked a little bit as well from the east and west. So moving on to a further plan showing more detailed sort of layout, or perhaps a slightly clearer layout, and then we've obviously got the scale of the dwelling shown as well, being single storey on that left hand side of the image. And then we've got a photo of the existing dwelling fronting onto Westfield Road. The access would be taken at the side of this, basically where the fence is, fence or gate, and then just the general sort of arrangements to the side and rear of the property. And then here we've got a view of the adjoining dwellings to the west, in front of the existing garage, and then the lower two photos show the kind of the sort of overgrown nature of the site currently. And sort of the vegetation to sort of the existing boundary. So as indicated earlier, whilst the application is in outline, it is not considered that the submitted information has demonstrated that the principle of development of the site for 4 dwellings would result in an acceptable or high quality form of development, and as such would be in conflict with the relevant policy of the local plan. The recommendation is therefore to refuse the application as set out within the agenda and as updated in the report, the update report that's been circulated, and which has consequently seen 2 of the reasons for refusal fall away in relation to ecology and biodiversity net gain, but there is still the one recommended reason for refusal in terms of the quality of development and the overall impact which the scheme would have going forwards. Thank you, Chairman.
Yep. Thank you, David. Once again, we have one speaker on this application. I'd now like to invite Matthew Hall, of course he's the agent, to make his presentation to the committee. 5 minutes, Mr. Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. The principle of residential development of this site is acceptable, which is stated in under item 10.4 in the officer's report. This is a proposal, small-scale development for 4 bungalows. The site's all in flood zone 1, and Natural England, Fenland District Council Ecology and Cambridgeshire County Council Ecology don't object to the application, and I think as Mr. Rowan has touched on, there were 3 reasons when we got this report for refusal, and the last 2 reasons we were a bit surprised because we didn't have any warning of that, and my ecologist did write to Mr. Rowan, who acted, in my opinion, immediately, reconsulted with ecology, and those two reasons have been taken away. I'll thank David for that because he acted extremely quickly. We've worked here with the Highways Department, Cambridgeshire County Council, and we purchased the Highways boundary map with regards to the enlarged access, which proved that the enlarged access can be carried out and the visibility displays in each direction. Highways don't object to this application. We have shown a turning head in this site, which in my opinion works for a bin lorry to enter and exit the site, and all the properties have garages and adequate parking, all of which can easily be achieved in this site. On this section of Westfields Road, as you can see on the plan and on the maps that David's put up on the screen, it's fairly straight, this section of Westfields Road, and Highways don't object. Initially, Mainey Parish Council objected to this application on highway grounds, and we worked with the Highways Department, and they haven't objected. And Mainey Parish Council now don't object to this application with the enlarged access. The proposal is for 4 bungalows, small scale development. There won't be any overlooking from this proposal because it's bungalows, and we have committed bungalows as part of this application. All of the bungalows, in my opinion, will have an adequate garden area, greater than a third plot area, and adequate parking. Looking at the map that's on the screen, you can see obviously the adjacent site that was approved earlier for 23 dwellings runs all the way along this western side of the site, which we've coloured in orange. Those dwellings, they haven't been built yet, although that developer, speaking to him, is eager to move on. Those dwellings from these bungalows are between 20 and 24 metres away. The existing property, which is to the southeast, that's about 40 metres away from this nearest bungalow. And you can see on their plan, there's a lot of trees on the western bungalow, on western side of the site. We're looking to keep all those trees. And the access is obviously shown. There's no objection from any consultees on this proposal, which include Parish Council, Highways, Tree Officer, Environmental Health, Archaeology, Ecology, and Anglian Water. This is for a small scale development. Members will be aware of the adjacent site, as I've just pointed out, being approved, and other larger developments on this side of Westfields Road having been approved, which in my opinion sets the character of the area. This is a small scale 4 dwelling development for bungalows. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hall. Members, any questions to Mr Hall? And Mr Councillor Marks has one.
A couple, actually. Good afternoon, Mr Hall again. Firstly, I noticed, just to confirm, surface water this time is going straight into the Darcy Lode. Agreed?
We've shown a attenuation pond, and then which would obviously hold the surface water, then at a controlled rate. I think they normally ask for 2 litres per second, but I can't remember. Then it would go in straight into Darcy Lode. That's correct. All in the ownership of this site, yes.
And so it's not going into Anglian water system at all?
Correct.
And number 2, so the applicant, is he the owner of the site at present time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. Any more questions for Mr Hall before we let him go? Nope. No, thank you very much. So we'll move swiftly on. Questions, clarifications to officers. Anybody got any questions for officers? No? No? Sure, right, that's it then. No, that's finished that. So without that, I'm looking to invite members to debate the item in respect of the material considerations relevant to the application. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand, and who wants to kick off the debate? And it's again Councillor Marks. Thank you.
Thank you. Again, my ward, we've just literally passed next door, but I feel next door was a far better application. More space between the properties, the properties themselves. I think this, by what we've got there now, we will have overlooking into the bungalows. If they're bungalows, because it says dwellings at the present time, it doesn't actually clarify they're bungalows. On the applicant, it says dwellings. I have a concern. I think it goes back to the old Tesco saying, stack it high, sell them cheap. I think that site it's just too much in a very narrow corridor. That's my concern to it. I don't like the applicant. Oh, sorry, the applicants. Sorry, application. Sorry, I apologise. The application. I don't know the applicant, so there you go. I still have a concern regarding access to the site as well. I'm sorry, on this occasion, I just think this is somebody, we saw it before in School Lane previously, where things are getting put in for just, yeah, we can build here and let's get on with it sort of thing. So I will not be supporting this application.
Okay, relevant points there, Councillor Marks. Councillor French, thank you. First time we used that today. Councillor Purser.
Mr. Chairman, let's do it 3 times, ditto.
I have a funny feeling I know where this is going then. Okay, we're still in debate. I'm going to close it now because I think I've got a steer where this is going. Right, I'm closing the debate. Have you got anything to say? No, they haven't got anything to say either, which is good. So now, do I have a proposal to go with officer recommendation to refuse planning permission? Councillor Marks? Okay, so I've got a proposal to go with officer recommendation to refuse this application, proposed by Councillor Marks, seconded by Councillor Purser. Can I have a show of hands on that?
Unanimous decision, Chairman.
The application has been refused. Excuse me, that concludes this afternoon's meeting at 5 to 4. And I'd just like to thank members this afternoon. We had some really, really good healthy debates, and just thank you very much. Thank you.